But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With the rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, almost the direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're taking your calls as we get weird. Shout out Shane in the chat. Yeah, it is kind of our calling card. Well, and not because I think there's a novelty in weirdness. Of course, there is. But not specifically and directly. I think that as we move into this accelerating process that I'm always talking about, I think there is something to this maybe scientific blind spot we've had for hundreds of years that, we just haven't been able to flesh out all the answers just yet in some other wild areas of what's yet to come. And I think as part of it, thinking about these things before they become something, not only one gives us an idea of possibilities, probabilities, as I'm always talking about, as we're always talking about. But beyond that, I think it becomes, it's best to understand what the possible future might bring us. Because if we don't think about it before it happens, and then it happens, it seems like that existential crisis space. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you know me. No actual answers here. Just ideas, just ways, kind of ideas to throw at the wall, sort of consider this thing or the other thing or what's really happening. And what comes next? That's really it. So if you're here for the truth, once again, there is no truth to be found here. This is all ideas. This is conceptual thinking. I like to call it philosophical constructs as part of it. Okay. So there you go. That's all the disclaimers that are necessary as we start. Sorry, I'm running a little late. Things do happen, but we got it together and everything's figured out. So we'll begin. Let us begin, shall we? Okay. So here's the deal, right? We'll skip the commercial this half, and then we'll go do it on the back end of the hour. Okay, so I was thinking about a number of things, as I normally do. Not just thinking in terms of, let's say, what's to come, like I said, but what's from the past that we've missed, which we need to really drag kicking and screaming into the future with us and not leave it behind, even in the age of AI. I mean, it's funny to think that something, for example, like the Google search index is such a ridiculously archaic thing to kick off the internet, and yet we're used to it. It became part of what we do, and everybody copied them because it made them a ton of money and all the rest. But it was done, in bad faith. It was done sort of to obfuscate particular results and boost others. It was done and not really for to maximize information or something like that. It was maximized for ad clicks. And I mean, if you want to call that not acting in good faith for the for humanity, I mean, I don't know what else to call it, but that's definitely what it was. But some of those things, and the reason I bring up that example is that we shouldn't forget it. It's one of those things that might be one of the worst examples of how to build the internet in history, and yet it just became normal for us. We just nobody really railed against it too hard. It was like, oh, I'm gonna Google it. It became a term that people use anyway. So all that aside. Of course, it got me thinking about not just what we have left behind, we shouldn't forget, but also what comes next. And this is a what comes next level idea. Links will be in the description if you want to check it out. It's on livescience.com. And this is one that goes back to one of the very first shows we've ever done on Troubled Minds. That very first or second or third week we did this. We were talking about with Frank, the original co-host, shout out Frank if you're out there, of the idea that the moment you're born, you stop evolving. You're cellular locked into a cellular you, and that's it. And nothing ever changes beyond that, other than the ups and downs of getting older and, all the rest of the things that life brings us. But the term we used back then, and I think it's still pretty relevant now, is do you stop evolving when you're born? Or is there something else that continues to evolve as part of that human entropy cycle that I'm always talking about? Specifically, your brain, our minds, okay? And so let's go to Live Science. Can adults grow new brain cells? What if we could? Did you know this is a thing? Did you know most mammals have been proven to be able to do this? So why not humans? And if this was actually a thing, then what would it mean for the larger context of this conversation? I'm going to read just a little bit of this. The developing human brain gains billions of neurons while in the womb and tacks on some more during childhood. For most of the 20th century, the conventional wisdom was that the brain cells grown before adulthood would be the only ones we would have for the rest of our lives. But over the past few decades, more and more research is challenging that belief. Okay, so what does this change if it's not true? Anyway, so is it actually possible for adults to grow new neurons? While some experts believe there's strong evidence that we can gain brain cells after childhood, others are still skeptical of this notion. I wonder, right? The process of creating new brain cells is called neurogenesis, which of course is the concept of tonight's show. Researchers first observed neurogenesis after birth in lab animals of various ages, including mice, rats, and songbirds. In adult mice, they found new neurons growing in parts of the brain collectively called the subventricular zone. I say it, Mike. Subventricular zone. There you go. Say that 3 times fast. An area closely linked with sense of smell, as well as in the hippocampus, a structure that's central to memory. All right. Researchers think that neurogenesis in these brain regions is important for plasticity, which we've probably all heard. Shout out Blossom. You guys remember that actress? I can't remember her name, but she's now an actual neuroscientist and does neuroscience commercials and talks and stuff, TED Talks, and cool, right? Neat. I like it. Neuroscience is great. Neuroplasticity. All right. And she talks about that a lot. In mice, it's clear that lifestyle factors such as living in a stimulating environment and exercising can promote the growth of new neurons. Conversely, in mouse models of diseases like Alzheimer's, neurogenesis is hampered. What's still up for debate is whether these findings extend beyond mice and other lab animals. And you know what I think. Clearly, I think that there's something going on here in the human brain. It's part of us actually being, let's call it a conundrum. Our brain being as yet quantified. We don't even know what consciousness is. I mean, we can kind of define it in a loose manner, but once again, how come we can't swap consciousness? There's a lot of really weird parts to this that kind of make me scratch my chin and go, okay, so what of this? And if you noticed, I named the show tonight, it's based on the occult. Neurogenesis and the occult. Now, as you know, the occult just simply means hidden. It doesn't necessarily bring, a connotation of evil to it, though many people in sort of modern parlance use it as, occult practices of such and such or such and such, the bad guys are doing occult stuff. And they are, but also the good guys are also doing occult stuff as well. I mean, one might argue that we're doing occult stuff, kind of talking about these ideas outside of a mainstream paradigm. Okay. So, define it as you will, but it's not necessarily an evil thing. So here you go. We'll start from the right up because this is probably more important to get this first part right. We are taking your calls later on. That's her. Mayim Bialik. Yes, thank you. Mayim Bialik. I don't know how you say it. Thank you, sweets. Anyway, So we will take calls after the break. So phone line is up, Discord is up. But let me read this real quick. So the human brain was supposed to be finished, complete, a masterpiece of evolution that reached its final form somewhere around age 25, after which would begin its slow, inevitable decline. This was medical dogma for over a century. You were born with all the neurons you'd ever have, and from there it was just a matter of watching them die off one by one, like lights going out in an abandoned building. But the brain, it turns out, keeps its secrets. In the 1990s, researchers discovered something that shattered this grim narrative. Adult humans grow new brain cells. Not everywhere, but in specific regions like the hippocampus, as said, that seahorse-shaped structure deep in the temporal lobe responsible for memory and spatial navigation. Every day, fresh neurons emerge, integrate themselves into existing frameworks, and fundamentally alter who we are at the cellular level. This process, called neurogenesis, raises questions that ripple far beyond the sterile confines of neuroscience laboratories, and of course into talk shows like Troubled Minds. Okay, now, the more I think about this, the more I wonder about the things we've always talked about recently, over the last 2, 3, 4 years on the show. And that's, of course, the archetypes of Carl Jung. That's, of course, the hero's journey of Joseph Campbell. That's, of course, all of these circular patterns, these human patterns that seem to continually manifest regardless of whether we want them to or not. And I wonder if, let's say, back to the occult, the neurogenesis and the occult part of the discussion here, I wonder if it's something we've sensed and known for a very long time. And we've been trying to shake out this ability to maybe supercharge the neurogenesis cycle and grow particular spaces of our brain, or encourage them to reach out into the cosmos for a better understanding of not just who we are, our identity in the larger spatial cosmos, but also our identity here on Earth amongst each other. And as you know me, I talk about actual identity a lot because it's fascinating to me, like I said in the past, that there's this weirdness of, you may have been the stoner kid in high school or whatever, but fast forward 20 years, and are you now? Are you still? Or are you somebody else? And who will you be 5 years from now? And, our identity is always changing. And it's always, I think it's one of the things that's being wrestled with in the mainstream media, right? Identity politics I'm talking about quite often, because it's on my mind a lot that, we're told to think a certain way by how we look or something, like we're treated like herd animals in the political space, which just pisses me off to no end, as you probably might agree. And so that to me is like, well, okay, so if identity is one of those things that kind of can change, can kind of be malleable, and even, let's say, we press it in a particular direction and make it something that will serve us better instead of something that can be used to control us, then maybe, just maybe, this idea of neurogenesis is something that we have known and we've been practicing growing in particular ways. Now, for instance, a way of that may have been these past shamanic journeys. Notice when something traumatic happens in your life, let's call it a dark night of the soul. Let's call it whatever you want to call it. Let's say a near-death experience. Let's say you were in a car accident when you were young, and you have been terrified of cars ever since. Or something fundamentally changes in you when something happens in the trauma cycle. Okay, but imagine if those were ways of baking in new ideas and even stimulating this neurogenesis into a space we want. So imagine, what's the opposite of trauma? Jubilation, elation. I don't know. I'm sure there's a direct antonym there, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But in that case, then certainly we could sort of jar that neurogenesis in our brains and motivate ourselves in a particular way through something good, not just necessarily trauma in the bad ways. We recognize that a lot because it's something we deal with whether we ask for it or not. It just comes to us. And some of us are more lucky than others in those trauma cases, which is why we should be nice to each other, guys. We never know what people are going through. And so back to the other part of this, I do wonder if there's, what would you call it? Like it's been forever recognized as part of these shamanic journeys, or part of, growing this neurogenesis aspect or parts of our brain, that it's been what we've been chasing all along. And maybe something like microdosing these days, or maybe particular chemical aspects of it. I didn't really get into that in the write-up, but it just kind of comes to mind as part of the conversation. And again, as you know me, look, I don't know. I don't have these answers. I'm just kind of looking at this and scaling the idea and wondering if this has always been an intuition we had culturally and forever, for, let's say, as long as humanity's been alive. And the cosmos and on Earth and all the rest, right? But anyway, so that's where we start. And as usual, look, I just don't know. But here we go. So this is the thing, right? We're talking about identity, consciousness, and these impossible experiences, including, of course, we're going to get to some paranormal stuff and some of these other things, because isn't it interesting that maybe, just maybe, these ideas and this neurogenesis of growing different parts of the brain actually develop maybe an antenna aspect, okay? Like an antenna aspect of being able to see spirits, however you want to define those things, being able to see plasma in the ether, or you know what I mean? So sort of like those actual shamanic journeys are meant to sort of shock you in a good way and bring you back to reality with this growth in your brain that will take you to a new place that you've never been or never could have gotten without sort of that shock in your system. So I don't know. And that's the point of this. Let's see, making sure I got my notes here. Okay. So yeah, identity, consciousness, these impossible experiences, and adult neurogenesis. Okay. So the medical dogma was wrong. We just talked about. And if our brains are constantly changing, then who are we really? And back to the original question that we talked about way back years ago when we very first started the show. In the first week or 2 weeks, we definitely talked about this specifically and directly with Frank. Shout out, Frank, if you're out there, about the idea that we stop evolving the moment we're born. At the cellular level, that's it. There's no more evolution because it's been done. The mother and the father and the thing and the birth, and there you go. You're you. Smack you on the ass, go get him, tiger. Go live a good life. We'll pray for you. I mean, but maybe not at all. And I think the New Age community definitely kind of sits on the other side of that fence, because clearly that would mean there's no evolution of the soul. There's no evolution of sort of a karma-based system that may or may not be real, by the way. I mean, as usual, these things are above my pay grade, but that's where my mind is at for the moment. And let's see. So if our brains are constantly changing, who are we really? And how about this? And the question, another question as we start, have you ever felt like a completely different person after a major life event? And I think you could probably describe that as becoming a parent. Okay. Even not so having a niece or a nephew for the first time, like this type of thing in your family. Of course, negative ways too, but certainly it changes the way you think about the world and the larger cycles. And I think that's why this is important to kind of look at. And so, which we'll get to as we take the break here. We got some calls coming up. I see you, Michael W. and Mindy. You guys are first and second when we come back from the break. But the question to kind of lead us into the second part of this, which is the occult and some of these other mystical practices, the shamanic journey and some of the other things, is this. If our brains can grow new cells, what else have we been wrong about? Because I think there's probably quite a lot. And that's why we do it like this. That's why we do this as me being a non-expert in really anything and just trying to look at ideas conceptually and, put it through the lens of folklore and philosophy and all the things, let's say the as yet discovered science that is sure going to kick us in the butt in the next, 5 years, 10 years? I don't know. The acceleration of AI has been wild. 3 new AI systems are reported to be released next week. Grok 3.5, Gemini 2.5 Pro, and something else. I don't know. I mean, it's happening incredibly fast. And Elon, by the way, said this about Grok 3.5, that it's going to be the first actual large language model that will get details about rocket science correct, meaning you could theoretically ask it stuff about real, true physics, and it will tell you what's possible and what's not possible. And maybe even start to break down some of those codes of the things that we think are possible that are not. Or strike that, reverse it. Anyway, you get the idea. That's where my mind is at. Sorry for starting a little bit late. It happens, and we'll just keep on trucking, and we'll just pretend it didn't happen. How about that? We'll just strike it from the record. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts on this. As usual, no answers, just more questions from me, but I think there's a lot here, and looking at this through the occult or the old ways of thinking, these secret methods of our ancestors may be exactly where we need to be. You tell me. Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. And that's that. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. Michael W. coming up. Mindy and your calls as well. More Troubled Minds on the way.
And
feel their presence envelop me. Neurogenesis is a world we can see. It's more than living, a bond that won't cease to be. And in the dark, we find our way with glowing thoughts, a dance of fate. In this realm, we weave it right. Together, I rise, igniting the night. They're ghosts of my mind, shaping visions anew. With every thought, they come alive in this space we break through. Ethereal realms where we unite, fateful encounters in the starlit night. It's more than fleeting, it's where the magic ignites. And in the dark, we find our way with glowing thoughts, a dance of fate. In this realm, we weave it right. Together, I rise, igniting the night. In the unseen, we create with every breath and a new fate. Synchronized with the beat of our hearts, an invisible art that never departs. And in the dark, we find our way with glowing thoughts, a dance of fate. In this realm, we weave it right. Together, I rise, igniting the night. Through the static we sing, symphony unheard, building castles from whispers, painting words, in dimensions unseen, our spirits entwined, a tapestry woven from the threads of the mind, the loved echoes, a sweet serenade, this cosmic dance, our fears start to fade. It's more than a vision, a story we write.
Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking neurogenesis and the occult. I'm calling it New Cells, New Worlds, New Questions. How about this? Could the growth of new brain cells throughout our lives mean we're literally becoming different people at the cellular level? What if ancient meditation practices were technologies for triggering specific neural configurations or certain haunted locations naturally induce the brain states needed to perceive normally invisible phenomena? And of course, that's just theory craft spitballing. What do I really know? But you get the idea. I wonder if we can actually press this forward, what this looks like in the coming days, the coming months and years. And as usual, we should really think about this because, as I said, just because a technology or a discovery has not yet been determined or confirmed doesn't mean something's going to blow by us and maybe even we discover something far more strange than we could dream of collectively. So I don't know. You tell me. No answers, just more questions as part of the conversation. What are your theories here? What about that very first question? I think it's probably one of the most pertinent ones here. Okay, where is it? Have you ever felt like a completely different person after a major life event? And second, if our brains can grow new cells, what else have we been wrong about? What's this rubber need to be? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Thanks for being patient, folks. Let's go to Michael W., the official beekeeper of Troubled Minds. What's going on, my man? How are you tonight? Go right ahead.
Hey, guys. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good.
I'm the beekeeper.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I forgot I was the beekeeper of Troubled Minds, but
well,
yeah.
I mean, you told me that, so I ripped it off. So I'm sorry if you're offended, but it's true.
No, I love it. It was my life's passion until I broke my back doing it. I guess it's still something I'm very passionate about. And dang, speaking of evolution, it's a very fascinating example. The insect group of Hymenoptera, that's what bees are. They're a very old evolution. They've been around for a long time, not as long as sharks, but it's a fascinating thing if you ever want to look into it. Anyways, I guess we're talking about people evolution tonight, though, as opposed to bees. And I just had some thoughts about this. I don't think I have a lot to say, but you mentioned how we're born and then supposedly our biological evolution stops the instant we're born. Wherever, I mean, good luck nailing down that threshold. That's God, our American politics, we've been fighting over that for the past 100 years, right?
That's true.
About, isn't that?
Yeah. What's super funny about it too, is that I think probably that it kind of cooks in sort of our consciousness after we're born too. So I think there's kind of like this big fungible space of, pre-birth in the womb. And then, this is the time you're 5 or 6 or 7 when our brain's in that hyper learning phase. But I think we're dealing with like kind of a really wide gap. And so defining that down to like one moment seems a fool's errand to me, but hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy on the internet with a microphone. That's right. You muted yourself. I'm not sure if you meant to do that, but yeah, we ended with my bad joke. Sorry, go right ahead.
All right. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Sorry, my timer went off. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a pretty silly thing to try and nail down, especially when you consider how little we know about everything that we are, But this concept of evolution, does it stop when we're born? And is it possible there are other aspects of whatever we are that could continue to evolve? And the ideas that I had were, I guess I'm going to tell you my ideas, and then you got to remind me about that first question was that you asked right before. But I have this idea that we come to this planet, we're humans, we live around 100 years if we're lucky, some a lot less, some a little more. And while we're here, like you said, the moment we're born, it seems like we just, evolution stops, and then we're this body that grows for a while, but we live in a very toxic environment. It's toxic in many ways, and it seems to break us down over time. And then around the age of 30, we stop climbing and we start declining. We start, degrading, 30, 40. I think it really hit me, started to hit me a couple of years ago when I turned 40, where I was like, oh man, I'm not getting stronger now. I'm losing ground now, and you can say what you want about the environment that we live in and how we've made it more toxic than it should be naturally or whatever, but we are part of nature and we did that. So maybe it's all natural, who knows? But we stop biologically evolving when we're born. We're not going to have a mutation that occurs after we're born that we're able to pass on to future generations, which is, I think, the crux of that idea that you were talking about. But one of these ideas that I have is that our physical body isn't the only body that we have, and that we come here from another place, that it's entirely possible that we are maybe eternal beings. I don't know if possible. I kind of think I came here from somewhere else. I don't think I just started here and I'm going to end here. It feels like I came here from somewhere else, and I'm probably going to go somewhere else after I'm done here. And I think the whole point of coming here and running this race in this ragged body that seems to start breaking down just right when I started to enjoy it, I think the entire point of running this race is the process of evolution on another level, some sort of, I think I have some sort of spiritual being that's non-physical, possibly. Maybe it's from another dimension. I don't know. Maybe you can call it a soul or something, but I think it lives many lifetimes. And each of these lifetimes that it lives, it evolves a little bit. And that's the whole point of why it comes here, is while I'm here, it sure doesn't seem like I'm evolving. I was pretty tough and strong for 20, 30 years. And then around the age of 40, it all just started to fall apart. And, oh, it's not so fun anymore. Oh my God, what was the whole point of coming here? Well, I think the whole point was that there's that whoever I am, whoever Mike the official beekeeper is a lot more than this silly, broken down, crippled 43-year-old body. And that whatever that is, that much bigger thing that's non-physical, that doesn't necessarily dwell here on this physical planet all the time, is evolving because of what I'm doing here in this physical body. I think I summed that up pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too. And which of course would be that second layer of actually evolution, of an actual evolution past that point of birth and sort of the early growth. And I agree. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't disagree with you. I think fundamentally it's one of those things we're kind of chasing. And not only that, I think framing it in the proper context is important, because, some people use dogma cycles to frame these things. I don't think it necessarily needs to be framed into a this or a that. I think it can be very sort of just unfractalized, or just break it into 1,000 pieces like a jigsaw puzzle, and you kind of fit together what makes sense for you. I don't think the entire puzzle needs to be put together for you to cross, let's say, the bridge from one side of that evolution to the next. And that's why all this is so fascinating to me and talking to you guys about it, because there's so many ways to look at it differently,
Yeah. Oh God, there's so many ways to look at it. And you mentioned the possibility of our brains like growing new cells. I don't know if you were talking about that. Were you talking about that as a form of evolution?
Yes, as a way to maybe spur that in sort of the shamanic traditions of old. Like maybe that new sort of adult brain cell has, I don't know, like an inherent wisdom cooked into it, because now it's a mature brain cell, or it's new, but it's also sort of now commingling with all the ones that have been around for a minute. You know what I mean? So it's not sort of a built from scratch aspect. And so I wonder if that sort of that neurogenesis aspect of it is that evolution we're talking about, except in a biological space, because it hasn't been proven yet beyond the shadow of a doubt that it happens in humans. It's just heavily implied, because it does happen in a lot of mammals they've tested in the lab. So it stands to reason it's something that we certainly do as well.
Yes. And I guess this is one of the other things I wanted to talk about. So like, I have brain cells. I've done a lot of things to kill a lot of those brain cells. I didn't realize I was doing that at the time, but I did it. And I think it had an effect. And I'm also a person who's suffered from pretty horrifying depression and anxiety my whole life. And I remember being a kid and not being able to do well in school. There was like a point, I remember in kindergarten and first grade, like I flunked first grade. I was like, what am I supposed to be doing here? Color between the lines. What are you talking? I remember coloring between the lines, trying to do that. And I could not do it. And I was like, my teacher was making me stay at the desk and practice coloring while the other kids were doing the other fun stuff that I wanted to be doing too with them, because I was so bad at coloring between the lines. And I remember this, I have this core memory of being in kindergarten and just looking at this page that I was supposed to be coloring, and a coloring book, and it seemed impossible. I felt like I was being asked to perform an impossible task. I don't know why I was so bad at coloring between the lines. But 2 years later, I was pretty dang good at it, Something happened inside my head. And I guess maybe in my fingers too. I got better at coloring. I got pretty good at it, and then I could draw pictures and stuff. And then I felt like I had grade school mastered about the 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. And then 7th grade, they started talking about something called algebra. And I was like, there's letters now in math. And then bam, I was right back to the way I felt in kindergarten when I could not figure out how to color between the lines. Algebra was just as impossible. And then I did terrible through high school, and I think I graduated high school with a 1.8 GPA. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. That's
getting it done, brother. Getting it done is getting it done.
Yeah, I got it done, right? But it was horrible. I like, as I was doing it, I did not think I was going to pull it off. And it was, when I tell you that I was working my ass off to just barely keep my head above water and get a C, I cannot tell you how difficult that was for me. Whatever was wrong with my brain, whatever, ADHD, whatever, Then 5 years went by. I tried to go to college initially, didn't work. I let 5 years go by, a couple of years, 5-7 years. And then I tried going to school again. And all of a sudden I could sit quietly for a minute and listen to a tutor and kind of figure out algebra a little bit. And I passed an algebra class. And then I got an associate's degree. And I remember thinking, what is the difference in my brain now than it was 7 years ago? And there was some sort of discernible difference in my ability to learn. And the only way that I can figure out how to explain that is that probably my brain matured a little bit, right? They say people's brains, like men's brains, don't fully develop until around the age of 25. And what do you know? Around the age of 24, 25, I was able to go to school and start passing classes. I still wasn't terribly good at it, but I was able to do it. My point is that there were these markers in my life where it seemed like my brain developed a little bit. Dang, I was going somewhere with this.
I think I know where. Hold on. So the initial question as part of this was specifically this: have you ever felt like a completely different person after a major life event? And if our brains can grow new cells, what else have we been wrong about? Those are the two questions.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that's all I was saying is that I think that's possible. And then there have been, like I said, I've done things in my life that were probably not very healthy for my brain cells. And then there were other points in my life where I did things specifically to try and fix my brain cells that had to do with psychedelics and psilocybin therapy and stuff like that. And I think I guess that's what I'm saying is I think that's a real thing, is that sort of development. I don't know if we can call that evolution, because I'm not sure that is, there's debate about this, about whether or not those changes are something that can be passed on and considered evolution. Because like Terence McKenna talked about like chimpanzees discovering psilocybin mushrooms, and that was what accounts for the huge growth in the evolution of the human brain over a very short period of time. Well, that would only be possible if it's possible for you to ingest those things and it have some sort of chemical impact that improves your brain, and then that somehow be able to pass that on to a descendant. That's the only way that could be possible. And I guess I don't know if that's possible, but that was something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, it's something that you're right, has been sort of one of the hotbeds of argument in the modern biological space, is that epigenetics and sort of what we do pass on. Is it just trauma? Is it sort of strength as well? Like, for instance, if you're like a couch potato drinking beer and doing terrible stuff, and you're not really even remotely in shape, and then you conceive a child, does it pass that on? Or if you're the opposite, let's say you're super buffed and in shape and, studying as much as possible and, doing that, the shadow work and all the things and kind of really pressing your body to the best of ends and conceive a child, then does that pass on as well? And I think there's evidence to suggest yes in the moment, But again, they're still arguing about it because, of course, you need conclusive, trust the science style evidence to really say one way or the other. But it makes sense to me. It makes sense whether, even though that's not evolution per se, it's certainly a way to kick it down the road a little bit, even if it's not, it's not a consensus just yet. But yeah, anyway, we're in a weird space where we got Mindy on the line. So if you got more to fill out the rest of this, about 7 or 8 minutes, cool. If not, we'll go to Mindy. So you tell me, and if, and sorry to cut you short either way. And also, Mindy, you have time after the break if you want to as well. Just trying to get everybody in here.
Yeah, no, that was about all I had to say. Was I did want to talk about that idea that Terrence McKenna talked about how monkeys eating psychedelic mushrooms could have been a part of the evolution of the human brain, but that's only possible if it was possible to pass on that evolution. Because wait, if when we're born the evolution stops, then that wouldn't work. But somehow, through a mechanism that we don't yet understand, is it possible for that to work? That's all. I think that's about all I had to talk about. So yeah, let's hear what Mindy has to say. But thanks for letting me get things started.
You're the best. Thanks for getting things started. Always a pleasure. Thanks for listening. Thanks for caring about the conversations, and thanks for bringing fire. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I love you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. You're the best. You're absolutely the best. 702-957-1037. That's Michael W. on the Discord. Join the Discord. Come say hi. Come meet these amazing people. Speaking of the Discord and amazing people, let's go to Mindy. Just pop on up with your hand up and then unmute, and you're good to go. And like I said, you've got extra time after the break too. I don't want to cut anybody short here. I know that the whole point of this is to talk to people and share the airwaves and all the rest of it. So yeah, so hit the green arrow or the green hand. It'll pop you on the stage, then unmute, and you are on Troubled Minds. There we
Hello?
go. Good evening. Welcome, Mindy. Thanks for being patient. How you doing? Welcome to the thing. What's on your mind? Go right ahead. I'll be the timekeeper. We got about 5-6 minutes, and you're welcome to stay after. Go right ahead.
I have a whole lot to say because
Perfect.
I am an infant and toddler teacher, and I've just completed my training about all that stuff. Let's look at my notes. Hold on. So synapses and cellular done at birth. I don't believe that's true because honestly, a lot of things do happen before birth, as in terms of like connecting synapses in your brain and experiences, right? However, at the end of the day, that continues throughout your whole life. And I can't exactly recall when that cutoff is because your brain does apparently, that's what they say. I don't know if I believe this. They say that your brain stops making these connections and they'll get rid of them if you don't have those connections already, which is why it's so important to have all of these sensory exploration activities with infants and toddlers. So yeah, an infant might seem stupid as fuck because kind of they low-key are. Sorry, excuse me, I'm not sure if we're on air.
We are, so please no F-bombs. Appreciate that.
No worries, I'm so sorry. They might seem super silly, but they actually understand a lot more than you as an adult might realize, which is so fascinating to me because like how much of these children actually understand what we're saying to them. And it might seem like they're not very smart because of tablets and screen time these days. I work in a daycare center. I work with infants and toddlers up to 3 years old. Our center does not have any screen time, so maybe that's where my experience is coming from. But I feel like a lot of the screen time has this like negative effect with them because they don't get to develop all of these sensory inputs. Do you get what I'm saying? Like I understand synapses might stop, but I don't believe that's true. Because if children are able to, and if kids are able to have all of these connections and stuff, what the fuck is there? Oh, sorry, excuse me. What the heck is the reason why we are not making these connections as an adult as well?
Yeah, I think we are.
I believe.
I fully follow you.
I think we are too.
I think we are.
Because
go ahead.
I've had experiences that have been life altering in terms of like emotional turmoil or like explorations in my brain, right? I've had a lot of like, you might want to call it a psychotic episode. I might call it an experience. Whatever you want to call it, I've had different ways of like seeing the world. And because of those experiences as an adult, I'm 27, my life has changed. My experiences have changed. I view life in a different way. So although they might think the synapses just stop and you are done evolving at a certain point, I don't believe that's true, because I have evolved as a 27-year-old from my 25th-year-old self. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Which is exactly my point, because you can probably, I've heard this said just sort of in a, what is it? An abstract context, kind of every 5 years we change anyway. We have this turnover of ourselves, not just philosophically, kind of that's always sort of in motion. If you're paying attention, I think, but also it doesn't have to be. But then we also have this turnover of not just, let's say, our bodies happening with aging and sort of the atrophy of certain things, and even our brains in some capacity. I mean, imagine just sitting down and watching TV from the time you're 20 to the time you're 80, right? I'm sure there's going to be some level of atrophy in your brain to that capacity too. So I don't know. I don't really know, other than I'm with you. I think there's something happening here. How do we define it and quantify it, I think, is the complicated part. So let's keep dreaming it, and hopefully somebody can build it. Got about a minute and a half left. And like I said, you're welcome to stay after the break as well.
Sweet. I'll take my minute and a half then. Let's see. So I also live with my grandparents. My grandparents are between the ages of 70 and 80. I forget exactly, like 77, 78 type of thing. And it's funny that you bring up the mention of like watching TV that much. I do wonder about how often my grandfather watches TV, like how that has affected him. But he still works. He does all this stuff. But like, I know for a fact, him being in Vietnam, Navy and everything, like there has to be something that's changed in his brain to be able to function at this level. It's just crazy to me to think about, because I've seen how much change children can have, like infants and toddlers can have in such a short amount of time. And yes, that is just their vital like area of development in that age range, like that's just how it works. At least that's what they say. But I don't believe that an old dog cannot be taught new tricks, because I have been shown otherwise. Let's see. I do feel like a new person after a certain life event. I already mentioned that. Let's see. And honestly, I don't know if we can create new brain cells. I feel like that you can. Because if our body is ever evolving, then I'd assume that our brain is also ever evolving. That's the last thing I think that I have to say. We definitely can create more brain cells, in my opinion, because I don't know, people go through like traumatic experiences, either physically, emotionally, or even like becoming sick. And they're able to overcome that. There has to be something going on in their brain for that to happen. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Agreed, 100%. So think of this, the ship of Theseus experiment, where if you remove all the planks from a ship and rebuild them over time, is it the same ship after all? Because if we're turning over ourselves in the cellular manner every decade or two, are we even the same person? Yeah, fire stuff. You're welcome to stay. You tell me.
Thank you. I'll let the next person speak.
Appreciate the call. You're the best. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the call. Always a pleasure. Mindy on the Discord. Come join the Discord and say hi. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, our Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight we're talking, what am I calling this? I'm calling this Neurogenesis and the Occult. And remember, the Occult itself doesn't necessarily have to mean something evil. It just means hidden knowledge, hidden information. But I'm calling it, of course, Neurogenesis and the Occult, new cells, new worlds, new questions, because we started with this wild article from Live Science suggesting there's something called neurogenesis, that adults can actually grow new brain cells, which again, back to what I was saying to Mindy there, fantastic call. Thank you very much for that. It brings about that ship of Theseus experiment, that if over the course of like 10 years, if one ship starts one way and you remove and replace every single plank or piece of piece of ship on this thing, in 10 years, it's not the same ship whatsoever. except it still has the essence of said ship, right? The shippiness or whatever you want to call that. But it's been a thought experiment for a very long time. And now that we start to see that maybe this stuff becomes possible in the modern biological context, that there may be something to this. And if we're turning over cells and creating new cells and then becoming, again, new people every 5 or 10 years, identity wise, do we need a traumatic event to shock us into it? Or is it always happening anyway? And we sort of recognize a new version of ourselves and decide we're about to change. I don't know. It's a strange thing to consider. And are you the same person that you were 20 years ago? And I would argue, no. I mean, yes, everybody identifies you as you, but do you feel like the same person you were 20 years ago? My sore knee for no damn reason disagrees, but the rest of me is like, yeah, I think certainly I absolutely am different. And what does that mean? You tell me. I don't really know. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We're taking your calls tonight and lots of ways to look at it. We'll get into the occult stuff as we go because there's a lot of ways to look at this, but you tell me. Basically, a lot of questions happening. And do you feel like a different person after a massive life event? And then what does that look like and how does it scale into these ideas? Again, love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Thanks for being Johnny on the spot. Derek in Massachusetts, the Night Stalker.
Yep.
What's up, brother? How you doing? Welcome to the joints. Thanks for popping in. And sorry I didn't get time to tell you. Yes, you're up next. You're on Troubled Minds. How you doing, my man? And go right ahead.
Good. If my internet's glitching out, it's been fine so far, but if it starts to skip on me or whatever, just let me know and I'll switch to the call, to the phone real quick.
Okay, appreciate that. You sound good so
far. Wild stuff so far. I might be off the rails too. I might be way off base here, but I got a couple of things. So first you mentioned, I just got to throw this out there, the idea of like Googling it, to Google it. And a little fun fact, the first time Google it was used as like a verb to Google it was in that episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Willow was the first one to use it. So Joss Whedon potentially coined Google it and changed.
Nice.
Buffy changed the whole world. Crazy.
That's funny. As we always talk about, when fiction has a way of sort of influencing real time in the future. It's crazy.
Exactly. Damn, 1 second. So for this 25-year-old thing, I was obsessed with this when I was like 23 and 24, and the idea of like, I don't know if I ever told you this, but my last semester of college, like I don't have my degree or whatever because I wasn't going to graduate on time. But rather than like go home and start like working right away for my last semester, I just like stayed on campus. I just stayed in my house with my roommates and stuff. And I convinced my parents, or like they didn't believe this, but my reasoning to do it was I just want to I was in my height of my conspiracy woo like Ram Dass-y days. I was in like the peak of my like, I'm about to crack the unified theory of weird. I'm gonna get it. Like it just takes one of us to do it, and if I can do it, I'm not gonna work. And that obviously didn't happen. I'm way worse off than I was before. But just I was obsessed with the idea of like before 25, we're given these like glimpses of specialness and stuff, and then after 25, our brain kind of like the filter of the infinite kind of calcifies a little bit. We're not able to like it doesn't hit the same way. Like new bands, you would think that like rock stars, as they get older, can play the guitar better and can like write songs better than they did when they were younger. But I mean, I'm not listening to any like recent Rolling Stones albums, you know? Like I'm not it's like in the chess champions and stuff, they get worse as they age and everything. So I was obsessed with the idea of like 25. If I don't make it by 25, it's over for me. And like now I'm 35, and I'm literally exactly where I was when I was 25. You know, it's meaningless. It matters not nothing at all. But I found I was so obsessed with it. I found my sister's birthday post for my 25th birthday. She goes, "Hey, bro, I know you have a lot of ideas about what it means to turn 25, but I know you can beat the odds. Happy birthday, love you, whatever." So he was like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?"
Shut up. Yeah. Hey, stop it. Don't even bother. Come on.
But yeah, no, I mean, I really believed it. Like, not that I don't think that like necessarily cells. I think you can learn stuff and like cells grow, and you can make new connections and you can like learn things. But the ability to be like a prodigy is kind of over at that point. The ability to have some kind of like I don't know. But with all this, that's definitely changed, and I don't think this like chime in first. Like, get me back on track. But as far as the 25-year-old thing, I was at one point before I was 25, I was obsessed with it, and after 25, I don't know if it's because I have to kind of not think it's real, but I don't think it's real anymore. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think as Mindy was saying too, and as I've been describing as part of this, like when you deal with children, like they have this massive learning capacity, and we've talked about this quite a lot in the past as well, is that childhood wonderment is not frivolous whatsoever. It's magical. It's truly magical. And the problem is that, we kind of come out of that, and, trauma plays, and we all have, kind of take our lumps in different ways or whatever, and doubt ourselves and whatever all that is. But eventually I think it does wear out. I think we get to a point where we expect the world of ourselves, as we should. There's no reason why we shouldn't expect our best and, have maybe a twinkle in our eye to change the world some way. There's no reason to limit ourselves in that way. But the problem becomes that, there's no timeline for that. And think about, I've said this before, that, the thing is that J.R.R. Tolkien started writing Lord of the Rings when he was like 43 or 44 or something. So you know what I mean? Like we're so just like hell bent on getting old, and the human entropy cycles, as I'm talking about, we're all so scared to die and all the stuff in the younger way, that changes a little bit, at least for me, as you grow a little bit older, but there's still no timeline. There's still no rules. There's still no anything. So all that stuff that you're saying, I believe you can still do, even though, I mean, I know you can too, but my point is that it dulls on us. I think the reality effect of, oh, now I gotta wake up to an alarm clock and go to work just so I can eat type of stuff. When I don't want to do any of that, I mean, I want to eat, but I don't want to do any of this crap. I want to be like trying to help the world in the best way I can. I want to solve some things that have not been solved yet. And so I feel you there, but I think it's definitely a complicated mix of things, but, and it brings us right back to where we started with this sort of neurogenesis idea and the ship of Theseus, because if you have that traumatic event, does it sort of like kind of shock you into recognizing your new self? Your 25-year-old self now and your 35-year-old self is different, but you need some sort of dark night of the soul for you to like kind of reawaken and recognize that you're different in a good way, not in a bad way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like some kind of ego death is kind of the commonality, or kind of what people point to that as, that big trauma, or like a shamanic experience, or taking psychedelics, or some kind of like moment of an ego death, where like Ram Dass would explain it as you're just pouring in pure source, you're touching loving awareness again, like your ego has been removed, and so you're able to like get that childlike wonder again, or just dial the channels back a little bit to do like a higher perspective kind of. But but for the this is where I'm kind of going to go with the rails a little bit. So with the creating synapses before we're born, and then having that at least slow down like once we're in the material plane, what's the deal with that? And kind of like on a big picture scheme. So like, what if when we like exit the womb, enter the material space, we become neurons for a greater mind? And it's not that like, so we're like in the womb is like the training process, or kind of the download, or kind of the matrix in the computer to learn how to fly the helicopter, or to learn the function, learn the role. And then once you enter the playing field, you enter the game, then you're kind of assigned a role, or your roles might change, or you're assigned a trajectory, or whatever. And that could be the reason for the repeating of the archetypes and stuff, is that once you enter the game, you're like Dungeons and Dragons. You have to pick a like, the game will be different, like the campaign will be different. And like, I'm not a D&D player, so I'm just making an analogy for you. But like, the campaign will be different every time you play it, but you still have to choose your character. You choose your, like, what do you call it? Like the type, like the bard versus the whatever. Yeah,
character
like,
class. Yep. Character
class. Yeah. So you enter the world in a different character class, and that could like be the reason for the archetypes, because you have a certain function. The same way different like items in the body have a certain function within the body, or like white blood cells or whatever. And so we have all this development pre-birth, and then once we're born, are we not developing, or are we developing in a grander scheme, and like a grander picture, kind of like in a novelty aspect ties into this, and the idea of like us getting out there, having new thoughts, making more connections with people. And you're talking about like how we're like us in this group, like talking with each other, is kind of the occult and everything. And that's when it's definitely making connections. So are those connections between me and you, me and James, me and Rivers, all of us together, are those like synapses for the monad, synapses for the greater mind, synapses for the collective consciousness, or we're on a conspiracy, or on a weirder, like darker level, like synapses for the AI mind that we're birthing into reality, something like that. That like we're noticing like that what we're doing pre-birth, like that, like I don't know. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. The way you were describing it, I saw it fractals both ways, meaning this, that sort of pre-birth, maybe we're tuned in to some non-sensory input, sort of, Akashic record type stuff, maybe, right? Extrasensory perception type stuff, or maybe not, but just as a fractal example, like a layered example going the other way. And then once we're born, we start taking in the sensory experiences that sort of dull that other space, because we didn't have any of that. It was sort of just the red blob and the water we were breathing and whatever that crap is called. No offense, I'm not trying to be crude here. I just don't know the name. But I mean,
amniotic fluid.
Yeah, that. And so suddenly we have this really jarring experience from where we were able to maybe meditate. I mean, maybe sort of womb style is a meditative state, and then we come out of it and then are always chasing the meditative state where we came from. You see what I'm saying? So I think both of them play here, because one might be tuned in more without sort of the worldly understanding of it. And then we spend all our time trying to get back to that point, which doesn't make any sense because you can't. It's an impossibility to get back to that point. And who would want to anyway? I mean, then you've got to start over again anyway. I mean, it's a weird dichotomy.
It's weird thinking about like the growth process and like who are you really? Are you the 5-year-old self? Like what, like when it gets really down into it, are you like if heaven exists, when a person goes to heaven, which version of themselves are in heaven? Are they the version of themselves when they die? Are they their idealized self? Are they their 25-year-old self? Are they their like childlike self? What is it? And if it's kind of, and like I'm not sure if who we are is that as much. So if you kind of remove yourself from time, then it's kind of like our collective experiences and our collective life once we enter the world is more like growth of a shape. Like talked about this before, but Grant Morrison had that like he calls it an alien experience, but like a psychedelic crazy experience where he said he like met 5-dimensional entities, and he said that the 3-dimensional plane, and like all of us, we are these 5-dimensional entities, but we put ourselves in 3D space in order to grow thoughts, grow ideas, just grow things, because like it needs time in order to grow these things. You can't without time. And that if you see the 3D space, if you see your entire life from the 5D perspective, you're like a caterpillar kind of crawling around like a weird 3D design. Like each moment in your life has like a snapshot, like next to the next moment, and it's kind of like it's like a form, it's like a shape growing. It's not, you don't like pick one slice and say that's you. You are every single slice combined. You're that shape that all the slices form when they're made together. Like you're growing something or whatever. So what if that's kind of what's happening? Like I'm getting weird, so I'm trying to find the words. But like that's kind of the function for all these things you're talking about: the desire to reach out, the desire to make connections, to experience new plateaus or new like elevation with human experience, could all just be carrots and sticks to like grow, to create new neurons for something
exactly
else. So like societies meeting together, these great minds. Oh no! Oh,
no, you're good. You're good. It just skipped real quick, and I tried to cut in, but then I realized you were going. It was literally like half a second.
No, go please.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
So
you said secret societies is where I cut in.
Yeah. So secret societies, part of that is like you have these alchemists kind of working on their own, and like the kind of caricature of them kind of being in their lab and just unkempt and not being around any people and learning as best they can and having all these experiences and stuff and creating more novelty on their own, but that only gets so far. And then the secret societies come in, and these occult orders, these alchemical orders come in because it's a connection. You're getting these two minds, these two neurons for a greater hive mind to come together to create a synapse, to create a connection. So the same way it's happening to us clearly before birth, maybe it hasn't lessened after birth. It's just that we become those neurons, and that the connections aren't being made in our mind because our connections we're making in the material space are the connections of a greater mind. Like me talking to you on this show is a synapse for the hive, for the monad, for AI even. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
then, like,
it makes a ton of sense.
Good.
It's like social media. It's like Twitter X or something. So there's all of that stuff happening, and a bunch of it's noise, but a bunch of it's novel, and it's novel connections. It's not necessarily novel direct thoughts. They're there too, but the connections, the synapses you're describing are
Exactly,
those. Is me and you connecting through that larger context, which again contributes to a more healthy noosphere, as we've always talked about, that sphere of human ideas. That if we're not collaborating, as I've always said, and I very much believe in this, that if we're not collaborating with each other, we're stagnating in some way, because I'm going to say something and it may be random. Okay. It may not even make any sense to you in this moment. And it may be not magical, whatever. But then let's say a week from now, like it dawns on you that something I said that was not related to anything that you were thinking about now suddenly is, and it kind of leads you down this other connection that you never considered about your own theory. You know what I mean? So if we're not talking to each other, sort of breaking these structures, these structure of ideas, and kind of peppering new ideas at them constantly, we're losing. And I think this is one of the things that the internet has brought to us that is a super tool, but also people are just calling each other idiots and morons on the internet, and you're wrong, and fighting. I mean, it's become the opposite. And maybe that's the psyop of the modern time, by the way. Maybe that's exactly what we're supposed to do, because we've been indoctrinated to do it. But yeah, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, please. I'm rambling real bad. I'm distracted. But yeah, like these, like we have to genetically, we can see that we need diversity. We can't marry our siblings. We can't have kids with our siblings because they'll turn out bad. So you want to go to the next village, the next tribe, and find an eligible bachelorette there and marry, and then create and then I don't know. Like when I'm looking through the trajectory of history, it's all different moments of these synapses being created. It's one tribe meeting the next tribe. We create ships. So you're one continent creating the next continent. We create the internet, connection between people all over the world instantly, like me and you, like we're right now. As a way to create more novelty, more diversity in thought, more synapses for the growth of a higher mind potentially. And then I'm going to click on quick just because I want to get through these notes. You asked, has humanity been trying to do this for ages? The idea of like evolving ourselves, and this can go in two tracks. Is one of them like, is it a carrot and stick to build ourselves so that we make more connections, to create more neurons for the higher mind, learn more stuff so that it learns more stuff? The same way, like, are we building like technology? Are we just the midwives of technology? Are we building a cocoon for something? We're not actually the main player. In the same way, so these secret societies all about building the temple, elevating the temple, raising yourself, becoming a god on your own. Is that just a way, like a very effective subjective way for like if a neuron if all the neurons in a person's mind each thought they were its own personality and stuff, how would the firings in your mind be perceived? Would it look like hangouts and clubs and social gatherings and secret societies and weird stuff and like I don't know, and like, so is it just for that purpose? Is our desire to grow just to serve the thoughts of to create new novel thoughts for the hive mind? Or is it the opposite, where it's this kind of Gnostic rebellion, where we're like the elites, like the people figured out, we're in the mind of God. This means like everything that we're doing for this in service of this God. And then so the whole idea of make yourself a god, build yourself up, bust out of the prison, bust out of this whatever, is that a rebellion against God? Is that this kind of Gnostic thing where these secret societies, the cult workings, trying to tinker with the natural order, all kind of things? Is that like in opposition to this idea, the realization, like, rather than I'm not going to just be a cog in like a gear in this greater machine, my life is more than that. I'm going to try to empower myself. Like, I know it's hard to see conspiracy there. So I think all these groups are really shady. I'm just saying from their perspective, or like, is that kind of what they're doing? It's kind of weird. I'm not growing you, I'm going to grow myself type of thing. I'm not growing as God. I'm not in the mind of God. I'm in the mind of myself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I follow you. And regarding sort of these groups, I mean, there's people outside of our group or whatever that don't listen or have never heard of this or whatever. They think we're the weirdo group too. You know what I mean? So, and even doing, the devil's work, or however you want to define that. And I mean that in the most respectful way. I'm not trying to be stupid about it, but there are people out there that would say, with a particular point of view, that we're, casting blasphemy spells all over the internet or whatever. And if they listen, they really listen, they know that's not true. it's just it's interesting that there's so few people trying to bring these reality tunnels together, and we're one of them. We're one of those groups, and you can believe what you want, and it's cool. Let's talk about the ideas. But so much of what gets supercharged is the opposite. It's just that, like I said, we're trained to hate each other and trained to go after each other and say, "Oh, you're so dumb. You really think that? Ha ha, blah this, blah that." It drives me nuts. I can't stand it. And I know you can't. It's why we're here talking about this stuff. But yeah, regarding what you said real quick, I want to fill this in. It's in the write-up, this part we're talking about right now. I'll reframe it when you're done, when we come back, just to kind of keep that conversation going in that regard, because you're right on exactly what I wrote in this thing right when I was about to introduce it. So as usual, your intuition plays.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm way off the rails.
No, totally right on. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Yeah. I'm just visualizing like the process that's happening before we enter the material plane. Just in this case, in the womb of this, like, why? I mean, everything in our life kind of suggests that we are growing. We are learning. It seems to take a lot of specialness away if we're not. But it seems like what we're doing, like, is just a physical. I don't know. Just the idea that we are those neurons, so rather than them, like, really like connecting and firing in our brain. It's not stopping. It's that just like we are now acting as that to create the thing. And then if you look at our connections we make in our lives, it's the same exact thing. You know, it's like it's the same as I don't know. But just you asked, what's the opposite of trauma? And like, potentially that could be healing. So that could be why. And what's like, is that why you asked, is this why we try to reach out or go to space or like touch the other side, or people with the ability to see ghosts and talk to aliens and stuff? These are still connections. They're just more novel connections. Connecting like human, like man to the God is still like connecting the seen and the unseen. It's still part of a larger mind. It's still neurons creating synapses and stuff, like for a larger thing, to create more novelty, to create infinity, create an AI God or whatever. And it's like the importance of making those connections. Like all of the, I'm researching a lot of like ancient mythologies to try to create my like DC character I'm working on. And like a lot of these most important gods in these like tribes are the ones that make the connections between gods and earth, between heaven and earth, between realms. It's the connecting things. Connections are reaching out. The desire to get married, the desire to have kids, the desire to make friends, to be social. It's about making connections. So it's like our entire function in life, once we are born, it's to act like our brain does before we're born. It's like we are we are creating the synapses for the larger mind. That's basically all I got. I hope that made sense. I feel like I'm really
No, you're spot on. Yeah. I'll explain after the break here how you nailed it. Real quick, I made a note of what you just said, and we'll circle back on this because this is incredibly important. You said, I paraphrase, the cosmic synapse to create ultimate novelty, not just here, but elsewhere. We'll circle back because that's a very novel thought, and I think it's important in chasing down and talking about. Always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for being part. Thanks for putting out your break. Wild call. You're the best. You know me, love him. That's Derek the Night Stalker. Please give him a follow, troubledminds.org/friends. And it's Night Stalker. It's simple as that. Again, he's got a YouTube channel, and Night Stalker is STOCKER. He literally calls us stalking overnight from a grocery store, peels out his time on his lunch to call us and spend his time and energy and share his wisdom. So please, it could just take you a second. Please go give him a follow. troubledminds.org/friends. Scroll down a little bit. It says follow Night Stalker here. Go follow his YouTube channel. Leave him a nice comment, as many of you have, and I thank you for that. And that's that. We're talking, what is this? Can adults grow new brain cells? And how weird does it get when you kind of bake this down into a philosophical construct? 702-957-1037. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. Don't go anywhere. We got Herschel, Sterling, and your calls as well. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking can adults grow new brain cells? Not only that, is it possible that we have this situation happening with not just neurogenesis, which is how you describe that, but the occult, meaning that the old ways, the shamanic journey was about particularly somehow stimulating the beginning of neurogenesis as a larger secondary actual what is it? What's the term? Evolution of human beings instead of just the biological aspect, or maybe merging the seen and the unseen, as Derek said there, as part of this, merging those two ideas as stimulating this neurogenesis, and then using that specifically in direct ways that would cause, I don't know, let's say a predisposition to remote viewing, or a predisposition to or not, I guess it wouldn't be a predisposition. It would be a sort of a strengthening of these sort of extrasensory type ideas that it seems like we've had a knack for, at least conceptually, for thousands of years, that people have been into these ideas for so long that even via intuition. But I think it's more than that, of course. I think people have tapped into some of these ideas and can do these things and have been able to throughout history, and they're trying to replicate it and teach and become, well, I don't know, like the next level of evolution for the noosphere itself, the larger context. And shout out Derek, fantastic call there. And just to mirror exactly what he was saying in my write-up, because the part we're moving into is exactly as he was describing. And this is it. So why do all mystical traditions use similar practices? I'll just read you the quick outline, and then we'll get to the calls here. Hang tight. The meditation connection, fasting, breathing, isolation, neurogenesis triggers, sacred sites and brain growth, which we could have talked about with him as well, sort of the aspect of ley lines, sacred sites, things like that, right? Cave paintings, mystery schools, and neural architecture, which fits very well into the mystery schools as he's describing, because it is us reaching out not just to each other for novelty and for collaboration, as I always like to say, but also in the larger context here, the neural architecture, not just of our space or our own mind space, but the shared mind space, and how we sort of are able to stoke ideas into the air, right? We've heard that term, into the air, where people invent the next thing because it's on everybody's mind about what they want or what they need. And we're even talking about it maybe in an offhand way. But then it happens almost as if it was kind of built in a linear fashion to be created. Like it was there waiting to happen, and then it happens. It's a strange thing. Anyway, so what practices have, okay, but something strange is happening to people all over the world right now, which is the question. And is there, let's say we have trauma or things like this, or news cycles kind of dumping information on us, which we're not built for. Our human brain is not built for this whatsoever. We're getting enough information in a day that our predecessors, ancestors, several generations removed, would get in a week or 10 days. Or even they say that the New York Times, the front and back page of the New York Times, is more information than a medieval peasant would get in their lifetime, which seems a little bit of a ridiculous thing to say, because I highly doubt that. But I could see how you could sort of make that case. But this is where we're at. And does it fit? Is it something we're dealing with? And is it something that we're using to evolve? Because if you've noticed, people are kind of starting to wake up. And so I wonder if it is part of this as the awakening phenomenon, which is what he was saying, which led into my right up to the next part. We'll get to that momentarily. But what are your thoughts on this? Look, I have no idea. Again, no truth, just ideas. So if you hate any part of this, it's my fault, because I show up wrong and that's it. But you tell me. We're talking about growing new brain cells as adults, and the ship of Theseus experiment. You remove all the boards over the course of 10 years, replace them with new boards. Is it the same ship at all? And we're talking about you. We're talking about you, and the cells grow and they turn over and you change, and why? And how weird does it get? And what do we expect to find with this neuroscience over the next 5, 10, 15 years? Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Thanks for being patient, fellas, folks, friends. Let's go to Herschel. Herschel in Arizona. What's up, my man? You are on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? Just unmute and go right ahead.
So, the more we wake up, the more they double down. I'm just going to leave that right there.
Perfect. Well said.
I do think that we can continue to develop our brains as we get older. And I think that all of this stuff that everybody's saying about kids and children, like just being such sponges, and the ability for them to do at that age, to do so many things and to learn so much so quickly, all of that is true. And there is less neuroplasticity as we get older, I think, but there's still evidence that we can grow and that we do regrow we do grow new brain cells. And there's certain things that we can do, and there's certain things that also naturally improve as we get older. Like you said about Tolkien, I think, right in The Hobbit, not starting in The Hobbit until he was in his 40s, or The Lord of the Rings or whatever, until he was in his 40s. Like, it takes time. You have to write for your entire lifetime so that the mechanics of writing and grammar and syntax and the ability to communicate and all that. And then but that's why you have to do it your whole life, because once you have a few decades of information stacked up behind you, then you know what to do with that writing. You know what I mean? Like they converge. The knowledge and the years and years of data that you have stacked up in your mind, in your subconscious. Now, if you have writing skills, you know what to do with all of that data. But if you don't develop your writing skills, you don't know what to do with it. You don't have any way to express it. You don't have any way to get it out. So there's a convergence there. Then there's other things too, like you can do, I think it's called transverse exercises. I think that's what it's called, where you develop your right and left brain. You can help to integrate your right and left brain by doing certain exercises where you connect the left side of your body with your right side of your body by doing exercises across your meridian, across the center of your body. And you you take your left hand and you reach it across and touch your right foot, and you spin one way with your body while you turn your arm in the other direction, and get them both going at one time. That has proven to help people grow new neural pathways. And when you develop new neural pathways, you are growing new brain cells at the same time. Like, those two things are they're linked. Like, you can't do one without the other thing. So if you're developing new neural pathways, you are developing new brain cells. And there are foods that you can eat, like lion's mane mushrooms and a few other kinds of mushrooms, including psilocybin mushrooms, that help you grow new brain cells. There are cannabinoids like CBD and other cannabinoids that help you grow, that stimulate and accelerate the growth of brain cells. So it's totally something that you can do. It's not the same. It's not the same thing, though, as when you're a little kid and you can learn 5 languages. It's definitely a thing. But it takes exercise, and it takes the discipline. You have to have that discipline of writing every single day, or whatever it is that you're doing. And I really feel like I'm paranoid about all the toxicity, and I'm really careful about it. I keep my endocrine system clean, and I do those kinds of cleanses with lemon juice to keep my soft tissues clear and all of that sort of thing, because I'm paranoid about Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's and all that as I age. But I really think that continuing to develop my writing skills and becoming a good storyteller, I think that those things can help stave off the decrepitude, by just exercising it and having that daily discipline. I think that really helps.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And so I think I was going to make the joke, and this is self-deprecated, of course, so everybody relax. I'm just kind of making a tongue-in-cheek joke here. So if you have wild ideas in your brain and you never actually developed writing skills good enough, just do a radio show. There you go. There's the joke. That's it. There's the joke. Wait, where's the Daryl? There you go. Rim shot. There's the joke. Oh, I had it. There's
discipline. There's discipline involved in that too, though. I mean, you're one of the most disciplined people. This other show that I really like, it's called Hard Lens Media. This guy Kit, he does a show every single morning, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. Every single day, he does a 2 or 3 hour show starting at 9 o'clock Central. Hard Lens Media, every single day. And I've been watching him now for like 2.5 years, and he gets better and better all the time. If you watch one of his old shows from 2 years ago, you wouldn't even believe it's the same show. You know what I mean? And he's like in his 40s, I think. I'm pretty sure. So
what?
like he's
so
really,
old.
You know what I mean? That's discipline.
No, you're right.
That's discipline.
You're right. I'm just making a joke.
He's improving his communication skills and his analytical skills.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
it comes as part of it. Absolutely.
You know, that's
well said.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So discipline, I think, has a lot to do with it. You know, and just like it I think that it accelerates. You know, because there's an urgency. Like I am afraid. I am so scared of those mental you know, I can't even think of the word. I'm so afraid of it. I can't even say the word. I'm looking for dementia. I'm so paranoid about developing dementia that I just can't stop reading and writing because I'm afraid if I stop using my brain, it's going to fall apart on me. Somebody mentioned the Rolling Stones. They couldn't, you know, they used to write these great songs. Who listens to them anymore? I don't know. Probably there's some people who do, but what's his name? Mick Jagger dances. They say that he dances 6 hours a day. Like everything he does around his place where he lives, he dances around, and he has like exercises that he does all day long. Because I think it's because he's paranoid. I think he's afraid to stop because if he stops, he's going to die. That's what I think. You know?
Yeah, it goes
seriously.
Back, yeah,
he's so old.
I'm with you. It goes
you know
back
what I mean? The guy's going to be 90 in 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah,
you know
I think
what
so.
I mean? And he's out there doing rock and roll shows.
Yeah, I was about to make the same joke. You know, it's Newtonian physics.
He just doesn't stop, and I think he's afraid to stop.
Yeah, as we all should be, by the way. I mean, as long as you can go, you should go. And Newtonian physics says a body in motion tends to stay in motion. A body at rest tends to stay at rest. Take that for what you will, but it definitely works metaphorically for exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I think that there was another point I wanted to make, but I don't remember it, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's totally okay. Absolutely okay.
Somebody else will probably make the point I'm forgetting, so it's okay.
I got questions for you if you want to talk more about it.
I hope it's not dementia. That's all. Yeah, go ahead. What's the question?
Okay, so regarding neurogenesis and the occult here, do you think that we've been basically dealing with this forever, that shamanic journey, and again, even the dark night of the soul, this type of thing, the Carl Jung stuff, that it is sort of a recognition of our body, noticing that we've turned over enough of our youth sort of in the ship of Theseus aspect, meaning that we're the same ship built with new cells instead of new planks. And we need a shock to the system to kind of reboot ourselves, like a hard reboot. So you think maybe these trauma cycles of us, massively doubting ourselves, or, some people go, hardcore into this or into that because of whatever reason. Do you think that this is part of the cycle of what we are doing, sort of giving ourselves a real life resuscitation and like, okay, you can breathe again and you're no longer the person you were. You're similar. You have those memories, but you're now a new person. You think there's something playing in that regard and how we handle these things? Because that's the whole point of bringing up the neurogenesis and the occult. It's this ancient wisdom, ancient knowledge that might play in modern neuroscience. What do you think?
Oh, totally. I mean, I definitely think that there's cycles involved and that there are cycles involved. And I think that with each age, the physics and our relationship to the energies change. Like one of the theories I have is that one of the reasons that we don't understand the pyramids is because when they were built, the poles of our planet were in a different position and the energy of the earth worked differently. And if those poles shift back to where they were, those pyramids might kick back on again. And that relates to us as well. So these cycles, and there's the biblical story of like the devil getting thrown into the bottomless pit. And then we enter the age of Christ consciousness where the lion lays down with the lamb and things are milder and things are more peaceful. Like that's there's not a cutoff point. While the one age is ending, another age is emerging. And we can see that. You can see that happening with what they're talking about now with animals, and the communication between human beings and animals are changing. Like our ability to communicate with animals is improving. And animals, we're seeing animals in our lifetime, like in the last 50 to 100 years, several different species of animals are starting to use tools. We're watching this happen right before our eyes. You know what I mean? So while one age ends, another age emerges, and so those energies also change. You know what I'm saying? So it's not going to be like an abrupt, immediate kind of change where there's a new heaven and a new earth. It's something that happens over a period of time. And like I said when I started the call, the more we wake up, the more they double down. Like the whole thing of getting AI under the control of everything and all of that stuff is accelerating at the exact same time that people want to shrug off all of this authority. These things are related. It's the people who have the control systems are doubling down on us just as we're waking up. They know that we're waking up. That's why they're doing this. You know what I mean? So I think that it 100% plays in the esoteric realm. I mean, in terms of esoteria, it 100% plays. It's all integrated. It's all integrated. And the thing I wanted to say that I forgot, we know people who tell stories of head injuries, you know, they have a really heavy duty traumatic head injury. And when they come to their personality is different. Like they couldn't do math and now they can do math, or they come out of their head injury and all of a sudden they can play like 3 instruments. You know, just they pick up an instrument, they can just play it. Like weird stuff like that happens, you know, with people when they get like a head injury. So that's definitely, that also is definitely a sign of things like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like one aspect of their personality will be worse, but another aspect of their personality will have improved radically as a result of a head injury.
Yeah, you know? So we had a guy on the show. This was probably pre-COVID, just before COVID. His name's Eddie. He lives here in Vegas. I know where he works. I should go say hi and get him back on the show. But I bring him up because, shout out Eddie if you're listening. If you've been listening, he was very active for like 6 or 8 months on the show, and then he just kind of dipped. But he had a UFO experience, and he was never like an artist, but he had like a lights in the sky. He kind of had like a frozen moment and some weirdness, and then he realized soon after that he had this desire to paint. So he started painting, and he was like an expert out of the box. And so he started selling his paintings for like big money almost immediately because he was good at it now. And it never dawned on him, but he thinks he's not some sort of savant from his childhood that was suppressed or whatever. He thinks it was something to do with that. And maybe it was, as we're describing, a stimulation event in the brain, or a trauma shock that kind of woke you up as a sort of a master in that degree. And yeah, it's wild stuff. Like to hear him, he's back on he's on the archive way back. He spent a lot of time talking with us and telling us about his experience here. It happened here in Vegas, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, those types of things, they play, and they're not, I mean, they're rare, but it's not really so rare that it's ridiculous to suggest that, you know, some kind of trauma shock can, you know, turn your brain in a different way and make you, you know, a master at something. It's happened a lot.
Yeah. And the other thing too, is you mentioned, you just had the show about missing time. People come back from missing time with different skills. That happens.
Yeah, which I think was part of his experience, actually. Like he had one of those.
Yeah, probably. That makes a lot of sense. I just watched a documentary of that one guy, Hall, Charlie Hall, I think his name is, and he's the guy who has the experience with the tall whites and the grays and the Norwegians, and he just did his second documentary about his experiences. It's called Walking with the Tall Whites Aftermath, and he talks about how they use hypnotism. They can use electronics to hypnotize you, and that's why you miss time. And he had those experiences with them, he claims. And when he came back from missing his time, he would write down these treatises regarding physics, a subject that he wasn't even into that when he was a soldier, doing weather stuff when he was a young guy when he first met them. But he missed time, and then he comes back and he writes down all of this. He can explain like all their technology and stuff. So he thinks that they put him under and they just like inserted all this knowledge into his brain, and then he came back and just wrote it all down.
Which is weird. And that's historically too, that's a thing. Like I think Tesla experienced some of that. Who was it? The original Pythagorean theorem guy, the pre-Pythagorean guy? I don't know. There's a bunch of people historically that have kind of suggested something like that happened, where they were contacted in a dream, or there was some sort of shock, or again, like an actual maybe trauma, like a missing time, and then they came back and they were some mathematical genius. Hey guys, if I come back and I know math, either I've been abducted and I came back really smart, or it's not me at all. So just a heads up.
Likewise.
Don't trust me. Absolutely don't trust me if I come back speaking in maths. It's not the best. Fire stuff. What else you got regarding this? Again, so the neurogenesis and the occult, new cells, new worlds, new questions. And what does this head? Do you think we're going to discover something incredible about this in the coming acceleration we're always talking about? Or you think this is going to be suppressed per, protocol?
Well, I'll tell you briefly. I don't want to take up all the time. I know there's other people behind me, but I know, like I like a vision situation I had once was, and I think I might have talked about this on the show once, but I know I've written a story about it. But a vision I had once was like a kind of a vision type thing. I won't get into too much detail about the origins of that, but like I had this situation where I asked a question about our nature and our relationship to each other as humans, and what do we do about all the conflict. And then I had like something like a mild hallucination, and I kept seeing birds, small birds like robins and crows and blue jays and stuff like that. And when they would open their mouth to sing, they were making the noises of their ancestors. They were making the noises of dinosaurs. They were these loud screams and screeches that were terrifying. So this little bird would open its mouth and this terrifying noise would come out. And so what I think that vision was trying to tell me was, in the next epoch, your species will go through something like that vibrationally, where you're going to come back as a milder version of what your species is now. So you'll still be yourselves. You'll still be your species. You'll still eat meat and you'll still hunt, and you might go to war once in a while, but it won't be nearly like you are now, any more than the birds are like the dinosaurs were. Like, you'll be a milder version. And if you're looking for change, that's the only way it's going to come. It's not going to come through decisions to change your nature, because you can't change your nature. Only nature can change your nature. So in the next epoch, perhaps the idea of that vision was we emerge, our DNA, and we evolve and we re-emerge as a milder version of this, of what we are now, which means would make us less fierce and less, like, what's the word for what human beings are? We're just really
combative.
Well, yeah, we're just really, just deadly. Like, we're just really, we can be really awful, and so it's not that we won't have that aspect of our nature, but it will be a lot less intense and a lot more mild, a much milder version of our species. So that might be the thing of the lions, where the lion lays down with the lamb and it's peace and it's like Christ consciousness. Like, that might be what it takes, like a whole change, a whole cataclysm, and our species, dissolves, and then we reemerge, in another 200,000 years and we're this different thing. I think that's really the only hope that we have. Like,
I'm looking forward to it. Whatever that looks like, I'm looking forward to it. And
me too.
I'm hoping you're there, and we're there, and we're all there. And you're the best, Herschel. Appreciate the call. Thanks for being part of this, and always a pleasure. You have a great night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the show, buddy.
Take care. Give him a follow. Herschel. You know him, you love him. Commercial Herschel. Search that yourself. TroubledMinds.org/friends. Herschel, I'll tell you about him when we get back. More on the way. Don't go anywhere. We got Kelly coming up, and your calls as well. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking, well, all manner of things, as you know me. I'm calling it Neurogenesis and the Occult. New cells, new worlds, new questions. Now, it traces all the way back to the inspiration for this conversation, which I like to provide to you guys so you can kind of go trace where I started and see where maybe my mind went as part of the weird synapses firing in all the random directions that happens as part of my wild mind. But livescience.com, can adults grow new brain cells? And there is something called neurogenesis, which is exactly that, meaning that we are sort of generating these things continually and constantly. It hasn't been proven just yet. All right. They're still kicking it around because the only way to find out is to do some sort of invasive aspect to it. Okay. You'd have to, maybe the Neuralink world will sort of prove this. And again, I don't recommend putting electrodes in your brain, but maybe that will bring us to where we need to be with this. But supposedly it's a thing in mammals. They've tested this in lab rats and other things, and it happens in different parts of the brain, the hippocampus in particular, and some of the other spaces that are, well, interesting spots. But I don't know, if it happens in people, it really brings about, when we've talked about this in the past quite a lot, maybe not a lot, but here and there, the ship of Theseus, that thought experiment. Is it the same ship if 10 years later they've rebuilt every plank and replaced every plank and every screw and everything, every bolt on the ship? Is it still Theseus? The ship of Theseus, sorry. Or is it not? And that becomes the question when we're talking about sort of new brain cells and turning over our own chemistry, our own biological chemistry. And maybe this is why we're shocking ourselves into these dark nights of the souls, like I've been describing tonight. I don't know. What's your take on this? How weird does it get? And do you think there's a version of this that goes back to the shamanic journey, meaning that we've always been trying to, through some sort of alchemical tradition, spur this? Because this is what we need to ascend mentally into the next level of thinking, which makes, well, of course it gets complicated. Yeah. I don't know. What's Gaston says, are you replacing the memories on the ship? That's the real question. And I don't think so. I actually don't think so. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. We're taking your calls at 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Hey, low key, this is the best show on the internet, I'm told by good authorities out there. So thank you for that. Thanks for the kind words, and thanks for listening, and thanks for caring. Let's go to Kelly in Colorado. What's going on, my man? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? Welcome back, and go right ahead.
Good evening, Michael. How you doing?
Hello. Hello. Like I said, you always have a way of calming me down. Hello, Kelly. How you doing, brother? Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Good, man. How you been?
Good. No complaints out of me. How about you? I know you were moving and doing some weird stuff. Welcome back. Are you not on the road anymore?
No, we're actually moved in our house. We're just like slowly unpacking. You know how that stuff is. So, but yeah, man, we've been listening the whole time. There's a few times I've been logged on, but most of the time we're just listening, trying to get the house all put together. But thanks for asking, man.
Yeah, right on. Glad to have you back. Welcome to the joint. Shout out, Michelle. Yeah, what you got for us? Can adults grow new brain cells? And is this part of that shamanic journey we've been dealing with for thousands of years? What do you think?
So I'm going to kind of go off of what Derek and Herschel was kind of speaking about. Like Herschel was talking about there's different things out there you could do, with like different plants and different stuff like that you can eat. He brought up mushrooms and cannabis as well. That's actually a very strong one for me as well. Did a lot of research on that because myself, as well, just like everybody else, you know what I mean? When we're talking about people, billionaires and whatnot, they're trying to find the youth, the secret pill or the plant or whatever for keeping the body young, right? There's some very, very, I guess, disturbing ways that they've been doing that with trying to keep the body young, if you know what I'm talking about. But what's interesting for me, okay, so I've been down that journey too. And nowadays, with technology, you can replace the whole body. You can replace the sagging skin, all the organs within the body with this new technology of 3D printing. But now, when they first started that, it was like if you look up on YouTube, it was years and years ago. I was on TED Med, and they first talked about it, and they were just doing kidneys. But now there's been so advanced, they can do everything with like a lot of veins, like your heart, your most vascular type stuff, right? But the only thing they can do is the brain, right? So keeping the body young is one thing, making sure everything's, if you could replace it with something like that. But it's always the mind that they're after. And that's the thing I believe, we all know that, there's things that they've been harming us with throughout time, and now with technology, they are using this, through microwaves and stuff like that, through the internet, through Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, stuff like that. And there's books on that, and there's one that I usually read a lot about. It was called, let's see, what was it? Hold on. I just had a brain fart. Hold on, let me write it. Did I write it down? Yeah. Magnetobiology. Right? It's a book, and they talk about all this stuff with, the frequencies of these cell phones. And, it's very good science. One lady talks about like how it, reverses the cells, right? They start turning in the opposite direction, and the rest of the cells can't uptake oxygen throughout the body, and that's when you have breakdown, high things of cancer, because you're lacking oxygen throughout your whole body. But just to kind of jump on with like Herschel was talking about with cannabis, though, they're finding it's not only just because CBD is very good for neurological. That they found that out with like the little girl that was had seizures a lot, right? She was having like 500 a day. Then they started giving her what was at the time, it was made by the original man, and it was called RSO, Rick Sampson oil, and she went from 500 to like 2 to 3 a day, right? And that's actually a very huge leap in her ability to walk around and start talking. She was able to go to school and stuff like that. But that neurological, if you want to grow brain cells too, you have to add the tetrahydrocannabinol, which you add that with CBD, which is the whole plant, and then you can regrow brain cells. They're finding that out through a lot of science now, but they're not really going to talk about that on mainstream media. You have to find that out everywhere else. Besides mushrooms, he was talking about as well, which is a very incredible, man, because that's like a brain reset. When you take those the magic mushrooms, they're finding now that they can reset your brain, right? So there's some things that I was going to really see. One is your speech. For one is when you speak to yourself like that, like when I was listening to some people here, and they might not mean it in a certain way, but your body doesn't know the difference, right? Your speaking vibration, whatever you're speaking about yourself, that you can't do it, I'm getting old, especially when they're all doing this, they're trying to keep everybody thinking about it, right? With birthdays and stuff like that, I try not to celebrate those things anymore because, to me, I don't even think about a number, right? It's how you're feeling and who you are. So if you're speaking that way about yourself, you can't do that. You're actually, you're starting off on the wrong foot in the first place.
Yeah, it's that manifestation of reality. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. It's surely celebrate, but I don't know, maybe numberless, because I think that's part of it too, right? Like if you ask a particular person now, age is relative. And so if you ask somebody that's, 10, if 20 is old, they'll say, yeah, that's really old. And so you see that scales, and that's weird. And pretty much no matter what, you're old. Okay. Big deal. So we're all old now. Now what? So now what are you going to do about it? I agree with you 100%. And, take care of your body, do all the things like remove the toxins, all the stuff. And that mantra should not be what you can't do. That mantra should be what you can do. And I think maybe we're coming into that acceleration moment where these ideas will play, and maybe, just maybe, the acceleration of science catches up with that philosopher's stone we've always talked about, that fountain of youth. And maybe, just maybe, another 50 years would be a massive blessing with decent health. So, I mean, who knows? But you're absolutely right. Please, people, don't speak ill of yourself. Don't do it. Even if it's in jest. I do it, sometimes just as a kind of a joke. Like I made the joke about the, if you can't write, start a radio show. Hey, but I'm joking because I can write too. But I was joking, as you know. But I mean, it clearly was for the laughs, the gag there. But don't, if you think negatively of yourself, then your body will perform as such. Don't do it. Stave that off as long as possible. What is it? The rage against the dying of the light. 100%, man.
Yeah, man. So that, number one for me, that, I tell, like, people like my daughter, my stepdaughter, she was talking about herself like that. But, sometimes it's just, like people are just, you see that on TV or like movies and stuff, and people think that's just the way you're supposed to do it. A lot of this stuff is, it's all been a big, a mind screw, for everybody. And now with this new technology, they can do it. They tap into your dreams, introduce thought within, with these new microwaves. So, yeah, and if you enhance that with it, right, I'm not real bad on alcohol, right? I used to drink. But, when you get older, you kind of think about that, sometimes I wasn't really even a heavy drinker, even being in the Navy, though, for a while. It was, that was probably maybe even my most partying time. I wouldn't say most, but like when I was younger in the 20s, yes, everybody did that stuff, you're out there to practice or whatever, or even try it, or, whatever they want to call it. But, if you can just eliminate that from your, if they could like reset that, but you can, your body regrows cells every day. A lot of people don't think, see what's happening is they're destroying you. You know what I'm saying? So like some neurologists, I found that, I posted this on Discord, but there's some neurologists out there, they were, doing testing on Alzheimer's and people with Alzheimer's and dementia, right? What they're finding is that the body, they put everything within aluminum, right? Like aluminum was everything. That, before it was like sodas were in bottles and stuff like that. I mean, this was in the 70s, right? 60s and 70s. When you hit 80s, they started putting everything in aluminum cans, beer, everything they sold. A beverage was in an aluminum can. But what they're finding is the body makes fluoride. Now you add fluoride to it. But this is they're finding fluoride makes the body absorb more aluminum. And what they're finding, the aluminum is storing into the brain of these patients, high levels, which is causing the breakdown of the brain. The innermost part of the brain, right? So it's just like it's just dissolving the brain matter within inside. So they're finding that that's what's causing a lot of the dementia. Well, that's what they find high levels of in patients like that, as I should suggest. So I mean, I can't like put my finger on it saying that's the problem, but that's what they're finding. So to me, you just add 1 and 2, and there you go. But other things that could help you out, also real quick that I just want to bring up too. Like some people say, are we evolving? I say yes, constantly, all the time. Now science or something else out there would call it abnormalities, right? Maybe like people we're supposed to have an extra finger, an extra digit, extra digit on the toes, right? You're finding some weird, I wouldn't say weird, but different stuff like that throughout human history, right? They even we talked about this on the show where people called like superhuman beings, right? They had extra abilities. We're supposed to be doing that, right? And back in the Dark Ages, right, when we had, the Holy Roman Empire was running around, and they were saying people was like that. They were demonic. It was demons and stuff. So they were burning these people to the stakes. They knew about this, let's say thousands of hundreds, if not hundreds of years, years ago. That's what they were been doing. They've been hunting this down and trying to get rid of it, trying to sniff it out of the human race. But now, we were talking about, it's a new age. It's a new age of knowing, and all this knowledge that should be coming out about all this stuff. You know what I mean? So you got other stuff like other things that can help, like some things we were doing with sun gazing. Sun gazing helps with the brain and stuff. And yes, you can look at the sun, and there's only 2 times during the day. It's an hour before sunset or after sunset, and then an hour before sunset and an hour after sunrise. And the reason for that is because the UV index is 0, and after anything before that or anything after that 1 hour, you're going to have issues, right? It can burn your arms or your eyes, so you be careful if you're starting to do that. Me and Michelle did that for about 1.5 years. You're supposed to reach up to about 45 minutes. And, it's like it's a heavy meditation as well. Another thing would be to help out, too, they're finding a lot of parasite cleanse. You do a lot of parasite cleanses. Most parasites are cause of most diseases out there. I mean, some of the stuff, the tumors they look like, it's actually parasite, eggs. Big old egg sacs of parasites. They think it's tumors. They're finding stuff. A lot of this, I don't know if I say they've known about this forever, but now with all this new information, internet, everybody's learning all this stuff. But if another thing for me is the body evolving, not only through the mind, but through this connection of mind and body, controlling this matter within this life cycle would be like the rainbow bodies, the Tibetan monks. They had the ability to, if they could truly have that ability to do what they can do. I mean, that's probably the highest form of what we can do. And this body, I believe in this body, in this matter, we can control that. So if you can, if the human body is, we're supposed to be evolving. We are evolving. Some people may be slower than others, but and that's probably because of, like Marshall was talking about, the environment. That's everything that's been around us.
Yeah, because they haven't met us. They haven't met these amazing folks that make these ideas kind of go. And I think that's the thing too, sort of the new age, aspect of this been maligned for a long time has just kind of been crapped on because, you get wild ideas, sure. But the problem, in my opinion, with the quote new age stuff is everybody's like, oh, I have the answers for those things. And every book is like, a perspective. And if you can't like sort of break down perspectives and ideas and, sort of look at them conceptually and then take what's meaningful from a wide breadth of information, then you're doing it wrong. I mean, we're getting a lesson in this in modern media with the mass media and all the nonsense they're saying. And clearly almost everything they tell us is a lie, is a flat out bald-faced lie, because they want us to believe their narrative, their side, their, Republican or Democrat version of reality, which is nonsense. We all know it's nonsense. But the problem is that a lot of people don't know it's nonsense. And so conversations like this help those folks step outside of that realm and look at the world slightly differently. And that's good. And if you don't want to go as deep as we do and weird as we do, because look, I get weird, but that's the point, is to like kind of break you out of that cooked in reality that could be that watching TV from the time you're 20 to the time you're 80. Think about that, how horrifying that is, because that's where we're headed if we allow this to continue. It's up to us, man. And like I said, let's think positive thoughts about possibilities, because there's a lot of wild possibilities.
Yes, there is. And that's why I delve into like the esoteric and like the hidden knowledge, right? So I'll bring up Thoth again, right? So in Thoth's book, the Emerald Tablets, and the Tablet 12, he talks about how you can actually slow down aging and maybe even reverse it. I've talked about this before, but I'll bring it up again. In tablet 12, he'll talk about, he says, when you're in the second meditation state, you're going to lay with your head north for an hour and then your head south for an hour. But when you're laying your head north, you concentrate with like your whole chi energy or your energy of yourself from your chest up out through your head through like your seventh chakra, right? And you're pushing that energy out. And then that's how while you're laying there, you're concentrating on that. And then when you flip your head south, you're doing reverse. So you're from your chest out your feet, at the bottom of your feet. And you're thinking of the same energy, releasing it out for an hour every day. And I try to do that, at night. I try to sleep for an hour north, when I lay down thinking about, while I'm in that meditative state, and then flip around for another hour that other day. But there's a lot of things I feel like has helped out, like I have an injury in my leg from the Navy. So, but when I do that, after, I haven't done it for a while since we've been moving, but once I started doing that again, I started feeling a lot better again. So it's like, slowing the aging process down through the body. And he says if you don't do it around, at least by the age of 50, we've been doing this for at least, about 10 years now. But at least if you flip it around, if you haven't done it by the age of 50, he says, you're kind of behind the curve. So you need to, all you younger folks out there, if you want to check out that, that book, check it out. There's a lot of hidden secrets in it, man. You just got to read it more than once. And just like he says, you got to read it 100 times. And he says that in the beginning of the book, right? So,
which is the Emerald Tablets.
Anyway, man, that's about it. That's all I got for the evening.
Well, appreciate you very much. Good luck getting unpacked and all the rest of the stuff. I hate that. I've got a trauma from moving in my life because I moved. It felt like every 2 years the entire time growing up. So I loathe it. So I feel you. Godspeed. Again, tell Michelle we said hi. Thanks for listening even through the chaotic period, and always a pleasure, brother. Appreciate you. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot, man. Everyone have a good night. Take care of yourselves and be good to others later.
Amen. Absolutely right. That's Kelly in Colorado. You know him, you love him. Again, been a good friend for a long time. We got some old friends, and I don't mean like old relatively. I mean old as far as Troubled Minds goes. We've been doing this for 7 years now, and many of these guys have been active and calling in and being part of these ideas for almost since the inception, and Kelly's definitely one of them. And Joe and Fred and YY said over on the chat, Fred always says hi to me. Yeah, Fred's an OG. Fred is literally an OG on this show. Been here for such a good long time and talking about these ideas and thinking about these ideas. Fred's even called in a few times. Hey, shout out Fred. And regarding your story, Fred, about the anesthesia you woke up from during some sort of procedure, I caught what you said, that you were talking about that you talked to me the next day. You called into the show the next day. Like what? That's some beastie stuff. Yeah, we're blessed to have smart friends for a very long time, and that includes each and every one of you guys. Thanks for being part of this and caring about the ideas. I want to just reframe this real quick. Is that we're talking about again? Can adults grow new brain cells? All right. And the title of the show is Neurogenesis and the Occult. New cells, new worlds, new questions. All right. But it also brings us back to this. And we've done a whole show on this and talked about this a few times. But the ship of Theseus, also known as Theseus's paradox, is a paradox and a common thought experiment about whether an object is the same object after having all of its original components replaced over time, typically one after the other. In Greek mythology, Theseus, the mythical king of the city of Athens, rescued the children of Athens from King Minos after slaying the Minotaur. You guys remember the Minotaur? Shout out, who had the fear of the Minotaur? Shout out, Sonia had the fear of the Minotaur, which is amazing. After slaying the Minotaur and then escaped onto a ship going to Delos, D-O-L-O-S. Each year, the Athenians would commemorate this by taking the ship on a pilgrimage to Delos to honor Apollo. A question was raised by ancient philosophers. If no pieces of the original made up the current ship, was it still the ship of Theseus? Furthermore, if it was no longer the same, when had it ceased existing as the original ship? Yeah, I didn't recognize that was part of this conversation until I started having it. Funny how your brain seems to make connections that are probably there. What's up, Brent says, me too, Mike. Yes, indeed. What's up, Brent? And thanks for the kind words again. I'm honored and blessed to have such smart friends that have been listening from the early days and enjoy the conversations. Like I said, without you guys, I'm not doing this. I'm watching a ball game right now. So thank you for that. You're helping save my life. What we're talking about tonight is all manner of things. And what do you know? There's nobody on the lines. If you want to jump in here and give us your take, I'd love to hear it. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. There's no excuse. Kelly's moving, and he called us anyway. What do you have to say? Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D-Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight we're talking neurogenesis. Very simply, can adults grow new brain cells? Very simply. It doesn't get any more complicated than that unless you want to make it. So let's do it. Let's get more complicated than that. So I'm bringing into this the idea of the occult. New cells, new worlds, new questions, and that shamanic journey, all right? Now, what that specifically and directly means is that we've been kind of going through this ritual for a very long time. And as I said, that dark night of the soul as part of it, or trauma cycles, or and the ship of Theseus. Okay, so if we can grow new brain cells, and even if our cells, let's say the cells in our body are always growing and multiplying and changing and shedding and all the things they do, right? And which is an amazing function as part of it. But they still don't know they're part of us, right? They're just like kind of a thing and as part of the larger chunk of us, the larger meat suit or whatever. I mean, it's weird, right? It's weird. We're built of all these things that sort of function on their own in particular ways and spaces. And we're us collectively and consciously. We are Legion. I am Legion. Does that make any sense? Yes, I get weird. Okay, so a lot of things here. So the ship of Theseus again. So if our cells are always turning over, or always growing new brain cells, again, conceptually, because this hasn't been scientifically consensus yet. I know that's not really a word, but yeah, for we are many. There you go. The ship of Theseus, right? A common thought experiment about whether an object is the same object after having all of its original components replaced over time, typically one after the other. Now, if that's the case, then that means that the same person we are today is not the same person we were when we were, let's say, full grown, because saying when you're 10 is not really fair, because, you know, those cells are constantly turning over and growing, and right, it's not fair to say 10-year-old Michael Strange is the same as 40-year-old Michael Strange. That's not fair. But let's say 30-year-old Michael Strange and 40-year-old Michael Strange. Full grown, ship of Theseus experiment. Am I the same person? I think there's a lot of factors. I think it's complicated, as I always say, but that's why we talk about these ideas. And I got this fantastic outline because AI is getting better and better. If you guys haven't tried the new Claude, I recommend it, Claude Opus 4. And apparently we have Grok 3.5 coming out this week. We'll see. Anyway, so here's the thing. Where were we at? Ancient wisdom meets modern neuroscience, the global awakening phenomenon. Here's the thing, too. And when we talked to Derek the Night Stalker, he was talking about that part 2 of this that I had in the write-up or the outline. So ancient wisdom sort of meets modern neuroscience and that shamanic journey. Okay. But what about this now? The global awakening as part of it. Let's say since 2012, that's been, how many years is it? 13 years. That there's been this awakening of people, of additional information and knowledge because why? Almost as if, and Herschel said this too, there's like this catalyst. These things are happening at the same time. Like it's like this, I don't know, race of ideas and ideals into a particular space. And whether they collide or sort of merge or whatever is yet to be known. But you see what I mean? It's weird, but the global awakening phenomenon is part of this. And I wonder, so let's say environmental triggers, for instance, EMF, information overload, evolutionary pressure, so that maybe we're more adaptable than we ever dreamed. And let's say that, back to the initial premise tonight, we have the space of you stop evolving the moment you're born, okay, conceptually, or you evolve continually throughout your lifetime, spiritually, karmically, morally, whatever, right? Like, once again, you define the terms. I don't care what they are, because notice how tightly they fit together. All right. But this gets weird, because if we're talking about information overload, our brains aren't built for this, as I was saying previously. And so if we're taking in all this information and we're like, well, what do we do with this? It feels as if we will evolve into that space and be able to synthesize a ton of data. And it turns out, look, I'm not an expert in anything, to be perfectly honest. As you guys know, I'm perfectly honest. I'm an expert in being honest, by the way. It's one of my things where I'm like, even to my detriment sometimes, most times, all the times. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I feel bad about any sort of deception whatsoever, even socially or whatever. I'm just like, yeah, I'm weird. You don't like me, right? Whatever. Like, yeah, like that's your thing. That's not my thing. Like, I don't have to worry about any of these drama cycles everybody else is kind of caught up into. And I don't mean everybody, but you know what I mean, conceptually. However, if this is what we're dealing with in sort of these awakening cycles or information overload, again, EMF, evolutionary pressure, maybe this growing brain cells thing is sort of being pressed by that, by synthesizing a ton of data all at once. And it's always been, for me personally, it's always been one of my strengths. I've been, dare I say, gifted to kind of just flow through a bunch of information. And I mean, this is how I got through school. So this troubled mind stuff to me is like super easy, right? But I recognize it's not. It's just one of my strengths. It always has been, kind of flowing through and kind of narrative building. And that's why I recognize that it's nonsense, right? And what I mean by that is not demeaning myself or even the ideas, is that you can make data points from nearly anything and even make a good-ish faith case about almost anything if you're doing it right, okay? But that becomes the larger conundrum of these conversations. So anyway, the global awakening. Okay, so are we branching into two species maybe? And also, when did you start noticing meaningful coincidences? Does it actually go back to 2012? Is there some sort of synchronicity there to that Mayan Baktun long count calendar, right? Because remember, we were supposed to have the world end in 2012. We're still here. So what does that mean? I don't really know. Anyway, okay, what do we got? The imaginary friend stuff. That's in the write-up. If you're into the write-ups, this one's very good as well. It's a little lengthy because there was too much good stuff. Usually I trim out a bunch of stuff from it, but there was too much good stuff, right? What's that show or the commercial? Anyway, whatever. Marketing. Too much good stuff this time. So I had to make it as long as it is. So sorry about that. If you're like, damn, Mike, this is really long. Just have AI summarize it for you. How about that? That's the way this will be. But anyway, right? Which is how we play, right? I get bullet points, write them into a big thing, and then you take the big thing and then turn them into bullet points. So this is the world we live in now. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts on this. We got about 15, 18 minutes left. Call me. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. It's complicated, and it's okay. And that's why we talk about these ideas, and that's why we've been keep on trucking about all the ideas and things we do on Troubled Minds, because we've got a lot of very smart friends, and thank you for being part of that group. Here we go. Let's go to MJ in Virginia. What's up, my man? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you tonight, sir? Go right ahead.
Doing good. I thought about something, and growing new brain cells as an adult, I don't know that we do that so much because of drugs, alcohol. It actually burns a lot out. So the brain would have to race to keep growing them, or we'd have to be feeding the brain nutrients to help grow the brain cells, right? And our food is everything, food's crap. And then I thought about it, and I thought, algae. You can pull algae out of a pond and leave it lay on the side of the, next to the pond. It'll dry out and turn brown. And then you can take a year later, after it's been out in the snow and everything else, you can throw it back in the pond, and it rejuvenates itself. And I kept thinking about that, and is it so much that we grow new brain cells, or if we feed our bodies and our brains right, what it takes to run all this equipment we have in here, or organic equipment, does it just rejuvenate the brain cells so it can work again?
Yeah. I think that's the question here. And RC says something very simply as well that fits into exactly the conversation right now. Let me read this to you. He says, "But are you growing new brain cells or just learning to use the ones that we already have?" I think, as usual, it's complicated, and there's a ton of stuff here working with it. And I don't know. And I think the science, as I said earlier, that the growing new brain cells is still kind of under it's contentious yet. So they've proven it in other mammals. They haven't proven it in us yet because it would be incredibly invasive to do it. But there's the kind of hunch intuition of the next science suggests that maybe it is true. Just to kind of drop that out there as a big fat maybe, you know?
Yeah, because as you get older, you know, you retire from work and you're just sort of living a leisurely life, you don't stay as stimulated. And the brain doesn't work as well. You know, you've got to be doing something to keep it going. Some people not, but some people are much deeper thinkers, so that's part of theirs. Mine is partially just staying on top of what's going on in the world and how I feel about it, stuff like that. Plus, I use my singing at this point because they have tutorials on YouTube you can use, and that's I just do that at home, but it stimulates me and keeps me going. As far as using the brain, there's other things I'm going to try to do. If I can get myself to do them, I just don't feel drawn. And here's one for you. I hate tomatoes. I don't like berries. It's like, this past year, for some weird reason, well, it's not a weird reason, but I was at the food bank and they're going along, you get tomato sauce and this, that, and the other, and they said, "You want some canned diced tomatoes?" And I jumped on it. It was like, like I'm craving them. I wasn't craving any of it. But it's like suddenly, I'll take that. And of course, I have to have tomatoes in everything now. In the sauce, on the pizza, you name it, on top of your eggs, this type of thing. So I kid you not. And then they gave me this last time I went or got there, I got a 5-pound bag of frozen blueberries. I hate blueberries. As soon as she said it, I was like, "Oh my God, I can make smoothies with those. Give them." And of course, you get milk, and I had some sugar at home, so I thought I could just blend these up, put some milk in them and a little sugar, and I'm done. I finished off 5 pounds of blueberries in a smoothie within 4 days. I was just having at it.
Damn.
And I
careful,
looked at
bro.
stuff online.
Careful, bro. You're going to work out the toilet with that level of blueberry consumption.
Get it, clean it out. And so it's like suddenly I'm like, this is, and I wanted to slow down. I was putting a whole cup in there and just, it was good. It tasted so good. And then I realized if that happens again, use a half a cup, and some milk, a little sugar, and just, make it thinner than what I had it.
Yeah.
But it was just suddenly, all of a sudden this past year, I love that stuff. I wanted, tomatoes everywhere.
Yeah, real quick on that.
I think
real quick on that. Let me interject. So that's a perfect example of that ship of Theseus. Is they say that our taste buds are constantly changing, and so that's why as kids we're like super sugar fiends, and we're like feed us all the candy, and then by the time you get a little bit older, like you can't imagine eating that much candy because it just gives you a stomach ache. And so, but this is the ever evolving palate of the growing individual, which it's the same tongue, right? You're the same person. And so the same chemical interaction happens when you taste and eat something, but how come we are drawn to these other things that we never were before? It's I think it is part of this. And it's the same, you've had the same tongue, but now you like tomatoes and blueberries. Welcome to it.
Oh, well, it's even other things than that. I don't like pineapple. I don't like pineapple. But I started, and you're right, and I thought back in my life how things were going, and I was going to the grocery store, like Trader Joe's has organic everything. And I was going to like a Safeway and buying their stuff, and I was looking at it. I wasn't feeling good at all. I was looking at the food. I didn't want to eat it. I'm like, celery, it's like 5 feet high on one stalk. That's chemical right there. You know, you're looking at all the, it's just gross. And I got there, I started eating the more organic stuff they had. I started feeling better almost immediately, but I was drawn to go there. But it's been there, the store's been there forever. But suddenly I got to go there. And I found that, you know, through the years, I paid attention to the changes in my food and what is digestible and what is not digestible. And so lately, everything is becoming digestible. Like I said, I bake my own bread. Desserts, I bake them or make them myself, and I can digest them a whole lot better. You go to the store, there's preservatives and all this other stuff going on. And, you know, like I said, I've done that for years. But it's just, it kind of threw me with the tomatoes. And it's like, I don't have any right now. It's like I'm going through withdrawals.
So I was going to make the joke, and it's probably not appropriate, but I'm going to make it anyway because I'm me. So you're telling us at your advanced age, and I mean that just collectively because I'm, you know, up there too. Are you pregnant? What's going on with you, MJ? You're craving these weird things.
Well, I just might be. Who knows?
Pregnant with big ideas.
But I just noticed that, and then I took out, you know, some canned beans, sodium beans, and I washed them off. I dumped them out, washed them all off, and then put fresh water in with them. And I didn't have the sodium. I was like, okay, and I could eat them, and it was digestible. And I didn't have. I was eating this stuff for a while because that's all I had. I had a taste of sodium in my mouth 24/7. I could not get rid of it. And I realized I was ingesting so much sodium, it was just not leaving the body. So I had to stop wherever I've got, I had to stop all of it and just, you know, pick through what I could or, you know, don't eat this, don't eat that. And I finally, you know, got to the point where I discovered wash the beans off because that liquid has all the sodium in it for preservation. And I just got rid of it, and it's just, you know, beans. And I add maybe a little salt, not much. But just the way things are changing for me as far as food's concerned.
It's weird, man. I'll tell you what, it's weird. I'm the same way too. Like my life has been sort of this block after block after block of like just liking different things entirely. It's wild. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I mean, everybody knows that if you got a few years under your belt, you've kind of recognized it. And why don't we eat 10 pounds of Halloween candy at Halloween anymore? Yeah, because our body recognizes it's terrible for you. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's terrible.
Well, it's like coffee. I love coffee, but you have the cream and the sugar, and it's too much. And I've had espresso before, and I want to get an espresso machine because it's just the coffee. It's the mocha on top, or where that little brown fizz is on top, and then you have steamed milk. The steamed milk makes it creamy, and I like the taste of it. It doesn't have sugar or anything in it. And I can make my own little cup of coffee in the morning, espresso coffee, and you're done for the day if I want it, or it can just sit there until I want another one. But when I have a whole pot of coffee, it bloats. It terribly bloats. So you have to put that cream in or use milk or sugar, whatever you're going to use. It still bloats. Coffee alone doesn't bloat. That's what I found interesting.
I like my coffee. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird how the palate changes. But again, back to the ship of Theseus here. That's exactly the point here. So what amount of you is still the same you, let's say from 20 years ago? I don't know. It's a complicated equation, and sort of cooking it down and then, regurgitating or reboiling it up as a thought experiment here. It's, I'm not so sure. We're the same entity, but are we at all? I mean, I kind of think we aren't. The same ideas persist, like Gaston said earlier, within the ship of Theseus. But if you turn over every cell in your body over the course of your life, are you really the same person after all? This really becomes a question.
I would say yes, because you're going to reiterate your ideas back into those cells. See, the cell is a cell, and it holds information or holds memory. And I remember back when I was 6 months old trying to stand up in the crib, And then I can remember when I was 3 years old, I was trying to get my sister to help me tie my shoes, and she just barked at me, learn to tie your own shoes. And that's what she said. And I was sitting in the foyer of our house we was living in Virginia. And I remember a lot of what I've been through as far as that's concerned. So, and I haven't changed since I was probably 4 years old. That's another kicker.
Damn it, MJ.
Because I think back at the times, about 6 years old, I realized on my own, father was a major alcoholic. And at 6 years old, I realized that whatever he was doing was not my fault. At 6 years old, I recognized that at 6 years old. So I've been, out here, and I look back, and it's like I just see so much repetition going on that people are being beaten down by the repetition that they can't get out of the crust to move on or lighten up or open their brains to something.
Well said. All that. Yeah, I don't know. It's as usual, it's complicated. No answers for me, more questions, but this is why we talk to each other, because there's a lot of ways to look at this. Amazing stuff, brother. We got a call behind you. We got to cut. What's your final thought? Thanks for staying up late with us. I know you're East Coast, you dirty time traveler.
Yes. Eat lots of berries and tomatoes, anything that's antioxidants, because that actually helps the brain cells.
And that is medical advice you can take to the bank. And also pecans and walnuts and peanuts and all the stuff. Absolutely that Mediterranean diet.
Berries.
Berries too? Yep.
Berries, it's like, chia seeds, any of that stuff, berries, tomatoes, that stuff is high in antioxidants. And it just feeds the body. And you're feeding the body, you're going to feed the brain. So it's like something I was eating now, the blueberries and the tomatoes, and I just feel like, there's a revelation going on here. I don't know what's supposed to happen, but I'm able to digest all my food. A year ago, I could not. It was just, bloated stomach here. Oh, my God. And this past year, I don't know what happened, but I can eat. I had a great meal today. It was chicken and vegetables, steamed broccoli, and some rice. I ate it, and it went right down, and no problem. So I don't know if it's the antioxidants or my system's changing to the point where it can actually digest food now.
Weird, man. Whatever it is, God bless you. Get it on and eat some of the good stuff for you. glad your palate has changed enough to eat the good stuff. And thanks again for staying up late. And I'm waiting for your MJ specific bespoke tomato recipes. Get back to me on that, okay?
Bespoke. Okay.
Right on. Yeah. I don't like the word either. Appreciate the call, brother. Thanks for staying up late with us, and you have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Thank you very much. MJ in Virginia, you know him, you love him. Hey, anybody like tomatoes and blueberries out there? I do. An interesting thing about tomatoes too. I read something recently, like why they taste like cardboard, and like a truly organic tomato is like delicious and actually tastes like tomato sauce or something like it. Like it actually tastes like tomato. So recognize this: if you go down to like your local sandwich shop and you have tomatoes on your sandwich, they taste like a slice of cardboard, right? But like an actual tomato, like an organic tomato that's done properly, it tastes delicious, like an actual tomato. So recognize that the next time. And I'll pull up the science on that. I'll pull up a thing. But apparently there's a thing to it where they hyper ripen the tomatoes with like hydrogen gas or something. Like I'm just going from memory here, so forgive me if I'm wrong on the details. It's something like that. So they take them green, they artificially ripen them, throw them in the truck, and then ship them to the grocery store. And that's why they taste like cardboard, because they're basically cardboard. so anyway, if you ever wonder why your tomatoes taste like cardboard, now you kind of know. I'll follow up on that to make sure it's true. But I was like, yeah, that seems true, right? It seems true to me. Anyway, I get the benefit of the doubt because I'm not here spitting truth anyway. So look into that yourself if you're interested. But it kind of makes sense to me. Like if you artificially ripen stuff to get it to the grocery store as fast as possible, it's probably going to taste like crap or taste like nothing at all. Anyway, great call. Appreciate you, MJ. tomatoes and blueberries. I love to hear your thoughts. So we got one more caller and we'll wrap this up. A couple things real quick. Thank you so much over on Rumble. The Rumble crew always lighting it on fire. Got a couple of very generous donations. Puff over there. It's a great episode and topic, Michael, from the Rumble crew. Thank you. Appreciate the donation there. Knights of the Storm, the real Jason Barker says this also with another generous donation. Thank you very much. Says, the soul is more than flesh and blood. So I think we are the same person. Just my opinion. There you go. The ship of Theseus has docked and has made its way home. Appreciate that, guys. Thanks for all the kind comments and just all the good energy and love we have in this space. And thanks for being good faith actors. And the advice I have to you from me, and I know you didn't ask for it, and unsolicited advice is the worst, but just continue being a good faith actor in the world and things will take care of themselves. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Brent, the fringe legend, Brent. What's up, brother? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you? Go right ahead.
Thank you for taking my call, Mike. I appreciate it. The reason I'm calling is because I promised RC in chat that I would give you a call and tell you a joke about wisdom. But he had made a little chat, the RC did, about wisdom, and it flipped the switch on me, and I thought about this joke. But let me preclude it by saying that this is set in like the Phoenician times, and around the times of the pharaohs and everything, where they still had markets and they did businesses and this type of stuff. And one person, this great king, actually was doing very, very well in all his endeavors and was known throughout the known world. And his son was getting to be about the age of 13 or so. And he came to his father and he says, "Father, you've done so well and everything." And he says, could you tell me what wisdom I need to do the same thing as you have done? And his father says, "Sure." He said, when it comes to business, if you make a promise, then you have to do everything utterly, even if it's almost impossible to fulfill that promise, even if it means that you have to destroy your entire empire to get that done. And his son said, "Oh, Father, that it truly is wisdom." And he said, "Yes." He says, but let me make a note. He said, "Well, what is integrity then?" He said, "Well, integrity is that you don't make such promises."
I felt that one coming. Yeah, right. Like you can't go to the ends of the earth to ruin yourself. And there are people that would ask you to. Yeah, 100% wisdom. And I feel you that. And I love that joke. And I love that you were kind of teasing that in the chat. I didn't see it if you were teasing that, but yeah, it is wisdom of the highest order. And it is why one of the biggest reason, maybe not biggest, let's say it's a large reason why we have this society we have, is that we strive to be honest, but then also, right, when we're negotiating, we're like, well, can you give me 10% more for no other reason than I want it, right? Not that I'm worth it, but I want it. It's a dishonest thing, right? It's yeah. Welcome to it. Yeah, fire stuff, brother.
Selling cardboard tomatoes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. And on that, am I right? Or if you go down to the store and cut up your tomatoes, do they not taste like cardboard? Am I right on that?
I think the skin is like tougher than leather.
Okay.
I don't know what they put on the outside of those things to keep all the bugs away.
It's a good point. That's a good point. As usual, grow your own stuff, and then you'll know where it's coming from. But yeah, it's shout out. That's who's that? One of our friends always calls and says that, but it's totally true. It's totally true. That's he'll come to mind in a second here. He was in here earlier, but I mean, that's the point.
If the ants don't eat it, then you better not,
Yeah. They'll tell you. Yeah. They'll tell us everything. Nature has a way of telling you everything you need to know if you pay attention to it. And that's one of the things I learned early on. And I'm not a guru or anything, but I do pay attention a little bit more as I've just grown older, there's so many clues out there that suggest what you should be doing. Don't miss them, guys.
You're not older. You're not older. You're a young man. Let me tell you, you're a young man. Okay, you're just starting.
100%.
You're just in your early 50s, right?
Ish. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Or you're in your 50s, right?
Barely.
You know, that half century mark.
I'm actually exactly 50. I'm exactly 50. Yeah.
You're just starting, dude. You're a young man. Let me tell you. Anyway, that's it for me. I know we're pressed for time. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a good friend for a long time. And the legend, Brent from Fringe, you're the best, brother. Look forward to talking to you soon and have a fantastic night. Appreciate the call.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier too, age is relative. To a 10-year-old, we're all old, right? It's true. It's completely true. And I don't know, like at some point you just get over it. I wasn't over it, but now I'm over it. Whatever. I'm 50. Big deal. You get over it. All right. But yeah, that's it. I don't know. More Troubled Minds coming up Tuesday, God willing. And anybody seen Andor? I'm going to try and watch some Andor tomorrow night. And the new Star Wars second season, which if Andor 2 fails me, I may be done with Star Wars forever. I'm so sick of the crap they've been putting out. But anyway, as an aside there, that's my the Michael Strange thoughts for the moment. Also, before we go, again, a second time, a third time, a fifth time, happy birthday to the real Jason Barker. And thank you for the generous donation. You're sending me money on your birthday. It should be the other way around, bro. And thank you for that. Thanks for being part of this. Happy birthday to Jason. Tell him in all the places. And yeah. Age is relative, guys. If you don't move, back to the old a body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest stays at rest. I think it's incredibly important to frame it that way. And if you don't, well, we got a problem, don't we? So let's do it. Let's keep thinking. Let's keep dreaming. Let's keep wondering what comes next. Let's keep walking. Move your arms, move your legs. Every little bit of exercise you can get, grab it. Take the stairs, all that stuff. I'm out there in the world every day doing stuff. There's elevators everywhere, right? Unless it's like 10 floors, I'm taking the stairs. Stay young. The great Michael Savage, who inspired me to be here, by the way, said this: never let an old person live in your body. And I think he's totally right. The second you do, the second it creeps on you. The second it creeps on you is the second you can't ever have it back. That's it. That's it. If you want to help Troubled Minds, help our friends, you know the drill. So many smart people make this show go. Like I said, like I continue to say, I could have just called this A Troubled Minds, given a 20-minute monologue and dipped. But it never would have been as amazing as this because of all you incredible people. Help our friends. troubledminds.org/friends. Please go help them. Spend a few minutes here or there. Making accounts where you don't have them. 98% of that's free. There's some people selling books. Go buy James's book. Go buy the Roberts book. Go buy Matthew's book. Go buy Viking Superpowers book. Go buy David of Magic of the Noises book. Those links are going to be down there. Please help our friends. Do all the free stuff. I would appreciate it very much. If you want to spend some money, go buy that. Check out their books. Very smart people as part of this. If you want to help us directly, spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening where we're not going to tell you who to vote for. We won't talk about mainstream politics. We won't talk about narratives that they want us to talk about. We go by synchromysticism. What did Derek say? I get my information from the only reliable source. Cryptic symbolism in my dreams. I think there's some wisdom to that. Shout out Derek the Night Stalker. Great call earlier. Yeah, that's it. If you want to help us directly, spread the word. Let people know a conversation's happening where we won't do all that stuff. And old school word of mouth beats the algorithms every day, and that's exactly the point of doing this. So please, just let people know that this is a space that's not like anywhere else. And we do march to our own drum collectively in the best of ways. And so let's say as we finish, don't ever forget that that's incredibly important, that you are valued, that the things you think and believe are not to be cast aside. If they're important to you, they're important to the world. And so recognize what happens collectively. There's a lot going on. As we finish, it goes exactly like this. And this one is for the real Jason Barker, because it's his birthday. And thank you for the kind and generous donation over there. For Jason, be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night.